Hello, good afternoon, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new day of racing here in the Sim Racing Collective Porsche Cup. Season 1 has brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, folks, we are back once again for another round of epic racing action. Today is round number 4 of the championship, and we have made our way all the way to United Kingdom for the one and only Oulton International Circuit. Located deep within the Cheshire countryside, this circuit is arguably the home of racing in northwestern England, and its origins as a country estate have definitely not given away, given the fact that over time, whilst the walls are gradually knocked down and the manor itself has been removed, the one thing that stayed right at the beating heart of this circuit is of course the fact that it is going to be rolling with the countryside and it's absolutely picturesque. But however, our drivers do not have an opportunity to enjoy the scenery because of the fact of the matter of the day is they've got to try and deal with a circuit that's absolutely tantalising and terrifying in equal measure, because they roar the way around the 2.69 mile long circuit. They'll find themselves having to contend with a whole mixture of sweeping bends, hairpins, chicanes, you name it, it's here. And that's before you consider the fact there's also several rolling elevation changes interwoven into its tarmac, and when it all adds up to is a circuit whereby to even lose concentration for a second could very quickly see you going onto the grass, if not all the way to the barriers, and nobody wants to do that when victory is on the line. But who exactly is going to prove the fastest here in Cheshire, and who exactly is going to prove what is ostentatious at Oulton Park? Well, that's what we're about to find out as we go racing today. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this live broadcast from the Circuit Side as you tune in today, in the only place you can catch all the racing action on a weekly basis here at the Sim Racing Collective, and of course at our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for the Sim Racing Collective or TSRC, and you can be tuning in there on a weekly basis. And why not subscribe today, so that way you can stay up to date with all the racing action as it unfolds. And as we come into this round, of course, what if it been a sprint race round? We'll give you a recap of the calendar shortly and exactly how the rounds all line up, but it does mean we've got an absolutely bristling schedule today in terms of the action, and we'll very shortly be making our way into our qualifying session. That'll be due to get underway starting at 1 o'clock. We'll join approximately 5 minutes into the qualifying session, and after 20 minutes of qualifying, it will be the first of our 2 sprint races due to get underway at 20 past 1. All these times, of course, being in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Chrono Time, UTC, also known as UK time. But race number 1 will follow in immediately at 20 past 1, and then we will be taking a brief breather before returning to the grid for the 30-minute sprint race. Of course, the slightly longer sprint race that's due to get underway at 1:45 today. Therefore, plenty of excitement to be had, and also partial reverse grid, of course, for race number 2, always keeping things interesting. And as we come into this round, we'll recap the story very shortly. We've definitely got a lot of interest going on in both the drivers and the teams' championships, and well, will it be an upheaval of those championships today going to our season finale, or will our favourites potentially have to carve their way ahead and give themselves the easiest possible time going into our final round? Well, for all that and more, let's go, ladies and gentlemen. And in the content booth, you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be covering all your racing action as it unfolds. So, taking a look to our calendar then. Last time out, we were at the Sebring International Raceway. And as our drivers made the way to the state of Florida to take on the old Army Air Base, now, of course, the home of an airfield, but also one of the premier international endurance circuits of the world, what exactly did we get to see there in our 1 hour feature race? Well, in our main format, we got to see Jack Salford take his first win of the season, breaking the stranglehold that Kieran Sharp had over the first 2 rounds with 3 wins in a row. Unfortunately, he couldn't quite make it 4 in a row, and Jack Salford was the one to dethrone him. However, the battle between the two of them over the entire race was absolutely epic, and we also saw in the mix Guillaume Hamling as well, the Luxembourgish driver, enjoying the battle of the 2 Britons, and it really was inseparable between them. So what did separate them in the end? Well, it was racing instance between Salford and Sharp, with both drivers there having a bit of a brief tap with each other, and it did end up in the end with none other than Salford coming away victorious, but meanwhile it did result in none other than what was Kieran Sharp losing out and finishing 3rd. But Hamling was able to split the pair, and what he admitted after the race, and he absolutely enjoyed himself, but he would put it down to just as much the fight of the 2 Sim Racing Collective drivers as it would be his own ability and pace, which really was the separator of the group. And in the end, he was very grateful for the 2 to fight each other. It really brought him right into the fold, albeit we did see it go all the way down to the very last lap, and indeed at the very finish line, we got to see it being only 800ths between Hamling and Salford, but Salford would be the victor. But that is the theory of coming into this round, of course, and the fact that Kieran Sharp is still proven to be one of the fastest, not the fastest out there. Jack Salford has definitely thrown a spanner in the works, and Guillaume Hamling really has been one of the strongest contenders as well, but we've also had plenty of other names that look good, such as Felix Moggy, for example, and also Martin Blankensteiner. But today, here we are for our second and final of our sprint race rounds. 2 races, 1 20 minutes, 1 30 minutes. It is March the 1st. We'll leave in February behind, behind. We have left winter behind, and we're now starting to make our way into spring here in the United Kingdom. Although, absolutely, there has been a bit of rain before we've gone racing today, and there's potentially rain on the forecast later on, particularly in race number 2. And I'll tell you right now, as I look out of my commentary booth window, we also do have plenty of rain looking around in the sky for a place to fall. But after Oulton Park today, we'll be making our way to the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta for round 5 of 5, and that will be our full feature race finale there. 60 minutes of racing on the 8th of March to crown our champions, both in the Drivers' Championship and also in the Teams' Championship. But with that, let's tell you a little bit more about our host circuit. Because, of course, it is the International Out of Oulton Park, located near the village of Little Budworth in the Cheshire County of England, the United Kingdom. 2.69 miles in length for a grand total of 17 corners. And, well, this circuit, of course, absolutely synonymous with the likes of British GT, also the British Touring Car Championship, TCR UK, and also, up until recently, Porsche Carrera Cup Great Britain. At its core, these 17 corners, they have a very narrow road width. The widest point on the circuit being the run from Deerleap at turn 17 to turn 1 at Old Hall Corner. Otherwise, there's only just enough room to go too wide at most points on the circuit if you dare. But as the drivers make the way around here, they'll realise that there's only really several major overtaking spots and not every corner is a valid overtaking opportunity. But as they head along the start-finish straight in towards Old Hall Bend at turn 1 in reference to the Old Country Hall, they'll come charging through that sweeping right-hander and down the avenue, they'll drop through Dentons and in towards Cascades. Cascades, of course, the left-hander at turn 3, which can catch out even the very best because you have to brake much earlier than you would at most other corners. It's downhill, it's off-camber, but also there's a bump in the road just before you go to turn in, and you need to brake before the bump. Get it right, and then you'll be powering your way down Lakeside and up towards Island Bend, the fast sweeping left-hander at turn 4, before coming hard onto the brakes for Shell Oils Bend at turn 5. With so much road camber at turn 5, our drivers will need to try and maximise its usage, carrying speeds in excess of 80 miles an hour as they exit that bend. Now they'll make their way through the curve of 6 and in towards the Britain chicane at turns 7, 8, and 9. It'll be a quick left-right left combination before they make their way over the hilltop on the back straight, and one of the major overtaking zones, if it's not Shell Oils corner, will be at Hislops at turn number 10. They'll come into the fast right into left chicane, and as they exit on out, it will then be a Knickerbrook corner at turn number 12, where as they roar the way out of the fast right-hander, which has a unique story as to its name, they'll make their way up through Clay Hill and in towards Water Tower. There they'll go from a quick left into a sharp right of Druids, a double right apex, which can catch out drivers by the fact you need to go for the latest possible apex, or you need to go for a double inside apex, but either way they cut it, when they come out of Druids, it will then be under the Warwick Bridge and up towards Lodge Bend at turn number 16. In reference to the old lodges near the gatehouse of the Oulton Park estate, which are still there to this day and preserved for reference, and as the drivers come out to turn 16, we down into the Deerleap before they jump out of it to complete the lap and do it all over again, or to finally see that finish line. Now, in terms of rules, because this is a sprint race round, let's give you a reminder of how the rules slightly change. Well, firstly, what doesn't change is the setup. This is a fixed setup series with car fuel loads restricted to 55 litres for each and every round of racing. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used, so all the drivers will be out on circuit together looking to go for pole position, but that of course does mean they need to find some track position to work with, and also perhaps a little bit of slipstream could aid them at certain points on the lap if they dare to use it. In terms of sprint races, well, the races shall commence by a standing start. That does not change. That is the standard format of Porsche Cup racing. But what we will see is whilst the race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying, that's a given. For race number 2, we'll be setting the grid based on the finishing positions of race 1, albeit we invert the top 6 finishing positions. So what that means in reality is the winner of the first race, they will start 6th for race number 2, and we continue that inversion all the way down to the 6th place finisher, who is inverted onto pole position for race number 2, and then 7th and downwards, they will all start exactly where they finished race number 1 for the purposes of gridding in race number 2. And each driver shall have one fast repair available in each race should they need to use it, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points, whereas all race shooting shall be conducted post-round. But with that, ladies and gents, and that's the rules, that's the regulations. We've brought you up to speed as quickly as we can with regards to everything you need to know in terms of winners from the previous round, but as we head back to circuit side, well, let's bring you up to speed with regards to the championship standings, and here they are. And as we can see, after 3 rounds, it is Kieran Sharp leading the way on 194 points, looking unstoppable at the very top at the moment, and the closest driver to the Sim Racing Collective esports driver is none other than Jamie Nuttall. Now, do keep in mind there is 1 drop score for this season. Those drop scores have not been accounted for as of yet. They will be applied going into the season finale, but right now it is Sharp who leads the way by a colossal margin, and will Jamie Nuttall, who missed last week, will be back today looking to go for gold, and currently he's the full fastest in qualifying. But then we do see none other than behind the Cracked Racing driver, further 3 points there to Samuel Kremers, DLR FP1, and well, the German driver there continued to move forward and definitely had a fun day at the office last time out, albeit yet to try and take a top 5. Mikel Estevez sits in 4th there, the ZRT Momo driver who had a nightmare day at Sebring with that huge instant coming out of the final corner in the early stages, collecting him and several other drivers. However, the Spaniard is back today in full force, and he's ahead there of Raymond van Zutphen, the Flying Dutchman, who's definitely trying to fly high as he possibly can, albeit last time out it was a 12th place finish there, and not quite able to match up to the 10th place we saw in race number 2, all the way back in what was our second round of racing. Arcelona sits in 6th there, the Kukas crew driver. He's definitely looking more and more threatening. 6th place last time out, a good performance from him. Head of Martin Blankensteiner, only by result countback, with Blankensteiner being behind as a result of Solona's 3rd place finish, of course, in his debut race at Fuji, the first of the 2 races there in Japan. It was an on finish for Blankensteiner last time out, and the cracked racing driver there losing critical points, and he's only the best part of 8 points ahead there of Otto Kiris. The Flying Dutchman driver then giving away 3 points there to Janos Wenzel, with Mav Gardner completing the top 10. From the 94 points of Mav Gardner after his 9th place finish last time out, where we do see Guillaume Hamlin there, and the cracked racing driver definitely having a bit of a fortuitous time, he could say, in the previous race, but understandably, of course, that 4th place at the Algarve in changing conditions, well, the changing conditions definitely suited him. Will the changing conditions here today at Oulton Park also suit him as well? Could we see him take his first win? Well, that's what he's going to be hoping for in the cracked racing 351 machine, as he's ahead of RPS Simsport's Martin Foster, and then we do have Quinten van Wingerden ahead of Felix Smoggy and Bobby Moss there, with the Nigel Mansell fan club driver in 15th place right now, 5 points adrift. Next going to be Marlon Schwab in 16th ahead of Pavel Gilliker, and then we do have William Chandler, Johan Ariffin, and none other than Leon Burki completing that top 20. And outside the top 20, let's not forget about them. We've got plenty of drivers here. Well, we also do have in 21st place there Jack Southfield, after his debut last time out and picking up the win. We'll be hoping he can move forward from there, given the fact he's on equal points to none other than Patrick Masagowski, albeit he is ahead based on result countback will win to his name, but not so for the Red Bulls racing driver. Tom Davidson sits in 23rd ahead of Mitch Willitston, and then we do have Stefan Hutter in 25th place there for Cracked Racing, who's definitely not had a happy season so far, albeit he was on the grid for the first of our rounds, but he hasn't been on the grid since then. We do see in 26th Joe Pinder ahead of Philip Kumlowski, and then we do see not Kumlowski, Klumovic, we should say there. Let's get his name correct. Let's not be rude to the Kukas crew driver, and he's 2 points ahead of Edvard Keziks, and then we do have David Humphreys and Goli Kunzabo there, both on 0 points round off the top 30, and outside that top 30 as well, all on 0 points. We also do have none other than Milos Meski, who joins the grid today, does the Polish drive from Kukas crew. I'm very happy to see him here. He's currently the fastest in qualifying, and he was the fastest in practice, so could we have a driver who's going to dominate proceedings today? We will see. He's ahead of none other than the Asterix racing driver there, or I do believe is Zach Zozuk, and then we do have from him Liam Giles, Paul Sims, Andrew Pike, Josh Millington, Glenn D. Dianosis, also there Gareth Ronda, Vladimir Blinkov, and Osama Konami, who round off that order of 40 drivers. Outside of your 40 drivers, how do the teams championship stand? And as we can see here, well, at the very top, it's the Sim Racing Collective Esports. From 367 points, they are 32 ahead of Cracked Racing, and the story between these two teams has been won, whereby right now Sim Racing Collective Esports have just been holding one step ahead of Cracked Racing, but it's so close between them. And last time out, of course, we saw a similar situation whereby it's first and third for TSRC, whereas with Cracked Racing it was second and fourth. Cracked Racing need to invert that run of fortune, and they need to be the ones taking the wins and also the spots on the podium, and they need to try and get TSRC Esports off of the podium. The Flying Dutchman, meanwhile, they're holding on to third down 207 points, but they are under pressure still from the Kukas crew and none other than what is their DLR FP1. Those three teams separated by only a grand total of 12 points, and there's a sizable gap there, the best part of 72 points to ZRT Momo. Red Bulls Racing sitting 7th ahead of Aspire, and then we do have Connexus Motorsports and Keziks Racing completing the top 10, and outside the top 10 yet score any points, it's Simoff Racing there in 11th place. But that is how the standings stand after 3 rounds of racing, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, well, let's focus now on how they're all getting on in qualifying, and as they make the one around, well, who's currently looking to be the fastest out there? And well, it's Kieran Sharp. He's just been able to take the provisional pole back from Milos Meski, albeit we've still got just over half the qualifying session to go here. And well, you'll definitely notice the fact that we do have a few puddles of water, and there is still quite a bit of standing water on the curbs. However, for the most part, the circuit is drying, and everybody is out there on slick tyres. So therefore, the slicks will definitely be the right tyre to be on, at least for now. And how can you tell who's on what tyre? If you do look to the timing tower on your left-hand side, you'll notice that between the driver's position position and their name. So between the 1 and the K for Kieran Sharp at the very top of the time tower, there's going to be a little circle there. And if it is a white circle, it means they are on slicks. If it is a blue circle, meanwhile, it means they are on wet tyres. Well, nobody wants to be on wet tyres. This is definitely a circuit that is not that wet, albeit it will be dry. It might feel a little bit greasy out there, but everyone right now definitely picking up the pace here. But Milos Meski, the driver who has joined the grid as this round, he is currently going the fastest of everybody on this lap. Well, I would imagine here right now we could be seeing a return to the very top of the tower very shortly for this man as he comes towards the timeline, and your number 11 driver comes on through. And what's it going to be this time? And the answer is going to be yes. He puts himself provisional pole by 3.5 tenths over Sharp. So Kieran Sharp definitely has some close company at the top, even if Jamie Nuttall is not providing that company at the moment. He is third, yes, but the problem is at the moment for him, he is the best part of 6 tenths off of Sharp's time and a further 3 tenths off of the pole sitter. So Nuttall's got to find a bit more time out there, which might be easier said than done. But speaking of one of the things we haven't done, we haven't looked to the YouTube chat there, and well, we do say hello to none other than Dave Barnes there, who says, got a feeling Jack Southfield could run away with this. Well, right now, Jack Southfield currently 5th fastest, as we are very happy to see you there, Dave, and I hope you're doing well, good sir. But right now, Southfield 5th fastest in the number 98, a whole second, a precise second off of the pole sitter. But then again, to be fair to him right now, if he's able to be consistent today, if he can finish inside the top 6 in the first race a day, going to the grid for the second one, he might be further up the order, and perhaps that might aid him a little bit. Of course, over these sprint race rounds, it's worth the same points over both of the races, as we do see a trip wide there from Gareth Ronda, respecting the fact that Jack Southfield was coming right up behind him, although keeping in mind, of course, that in qualifying it is the opposite. It is the lead driver who has authority on the road if they're on a valid qualifying lap, and the driver behind has to respect them more so. But as these drivers coming down the hill right now, it's definitely looking to be for Southfield an opportunity here to try and see if he can draw a level on this lap, although he is finding traffic as he heads around. That's the 333 of Mitch Woollerton, and well, catches the Canadian driver just coming out Knickerbrook Bend, takes a little bit of water on the right hand side tyres. That's not going to help him too much, and well, that might just hold him back a little bit. But as we also do say hello there to Garbador, who says, I imagine Sharpie is out for revenge after Sebring. Definitely may be, to be fair to him, because of the fact, well, of course, he lost out there with that late contact between himself and Southfield, and Sharp now looking, of course, to try and continue that run of wins. Ideally, he would like to make it a win or two here today, and he goes into the season finale with the points very much going his way. But coming across that line, Southfield now, what's it going to be this time around? And well, it was a compromise lap. He did not improve. But we need to improve our understanding of the laps around here, ladies and gentlemen. And how do we best do that? Well, we're going to get on board with one of our drivers very shortly. Who's exactly going to get on board with? Well, here's Mav Gardner making his way down in towards turn number 16, coming through the Lodge. And we're coming out of the bend now and through the D-Elite here. We're going to jump on board with him for a flying lap. He's making his way down towards Old Hall Bend at turn number 1. Looks to his left-hand side. Oh, a puddle of water there. That caused the car to skid. And you can see the puddles at the inside there. Well, gone in the end, picking the right place, sliding his way through. Now down towards Denton's and then Cascade. To the right and in towards the left here. Braking nice and early, keeping it in the middle of the road there to avoid the puddles. And as he comes all the way through turn number 3, letting the car run out there and just about in track limits. See now going flat out up towards Island Bend. And coming in towards the fast left-hander here, we full commitment as he lifts off the throttle, drops the gear to fourth, and now hooks the car over to the left-hand side to go hard on the brakes all the way down to second. In fact, keeps the car in the middle of the road. They're worried about the standing water on the outside of the road surface, and exiting Shell Oils. Now it's coming through the curve of 6 and in towards the braking zone of the Britain chicane. Hard on the brakes here. Straight line is wound in, bouncing over those curves. Got to be careful of them, of course. They won't settle the suspension. Now coming over the rise of a hilltop. Full throttle every step of the way. Get the car nicely over and look for his brake mark. It will be at the 100 metre board. Goes hard on the brakes. Leaning into the ABS. Trail braking through. Right into left into right. As he comes in towards Knickerbrook Quarter here. As late as you dare to go to give yourself the best possible run up the hill. And Mav Garden there doing a good job as he heads over the rise now through Clay Hill and in towards Water Tower Corner. And from the left, it's now in towards Druids Bend. Onto the brakes, down from 5th to 4th. Will he drop to 3rd at the second apex? The answer is no. He holds the higher gear to help with wheel spin. And now powering his way up towards turn number 16. Kind of getting ready to go onto the brakes here, braking about 125 metres of corner apex down to that second gear, exiting the bend, and for Mav Gardner, well, rolling his way out the hill here. It has been an aggressive lap. It has been a quick one, but does a quick looking one mean it's a quick one when it comes to times? And the answer is going to be no, because it is not a valid lap. We have had an update to say that, in fact, that lap did not count as a result of him running slightly wide at Cascades, so therefore he stays in 17th place at least for now. But if that lap had counted, it would have moved him into what would be around 12th place. So he's finding pace there, but he's got to hurry to do so because time is running out. And you see how crowded the circuit is there on the circuit diagram in the top right corner of your screen as he heads on through here right now. Definitely for Mav Gardner, a pressing time. He's got to find a bit more time out there, otherwise things are not looking good. And what's the last thing he wants to be thinking about? As he put the track map away there, indeed we don't score too much of your screen. Well, meanwhile, the pole position has gone back to Milos Meski, still holding on with Kieran Sharp. Not too far behind, but the gap between the two of them still sizable. Meanwhile, the gap being at 600, it's a sizable gap given how close these two have been. And Gwilym Hamling, well, he's moved up to third there. He has been able to put himself into that spot just ahead of Jamie Nuttall. And, well, with the delta, there is none other than the best part of 7/10 almost to Sharp from Hamling. And it's only 500 to Nuttall. So we do seem to have a top two who are absolutely pushing each other the distance, and it is third and fourth right now, fighting over that second row of the grid, literally, in this qualifying session. Martin Blankenstein are not too far behind either. So it might be the situation today where we have two drivers up front who just trying to run away, and then everyone else has got to play for the points behind. But who's perhaps struggling a little bit in this qualifying session at the moment? Well, we have 20 drivers who have put laps in. One driver who has not put a lap in as yet is Martin Foster, as the RPMS SimSport driver trying to get one together before the end of the session. Even if it is just a valid lap, it does put him up there, and well, he'll be hoping he can jump ahead of the likes of Janos Wenzel and Mitch Wollaston as a default. But how far can he go here as Foster comes out of the corner? And the answer is going to be as he heads towards that timing line. Well, we will see. But it's coming on through this time around. He's not on a personal best in terms of his sectors, but he is able to get a lap on the board. It is good enough for 18th out of our 21 drivers. As meanwhile, what's Jamie Nuttall doing? Well, here he comes to line. He's had a much better first half of lap compared to his second half of lap, which has not been as good. And Nuttall in the end jumps up to third. He does get ahead of Hamling, and he improves by 4 tenths, does Nuttall. In fact, 4.5 tenths there. So Nuttall now starting to enter his prime of 33.61 to Sharp's 33.41. And then that Milos at Meski's at 33.19. They are all pushing towards the low 30 freeze where they can, and well, can they get the job done? Well, in fact, there we get an update to say that Milos Meski's time is a 33.35. Let's correct ourselves, not a 33.19 there. That's more indicative of his previous lap of 39.19 instead. But Meski right now definitely trying to go a little bit quicker as Jack Southfield. Well, he comes across the timeline and he does improve to a personal best. That was a 34.31, but he is still almost a whole second off the overall pole time here. So for Southfield, well, 6th place is going to be the best place right now to finish race number one. If you can't win race one, starting the next race on pole position will be achieved through that 6th place finish, but I think he wants a bit more. This is not the Southfield that we've known from Sebring. It does seem as though this is more of a Southfield from Sheffield right now. I'm not saying that's where he comes from, but that's how he'll be feeling here. This is not as victorious or glamorous compared to Sebring, but we'll have to wait and see. Otto Keris, meanwhile, well, he's definitely been up inside the top 10 this season, but right now, this qualifying session definitely not rewarding him in a similar manner. He is currently all the way down in 15th place. The number 79 driver here, perhaps not as comfortable with the flow of the Oulton Park circuit. It's definitely not an easy circuit to be the quickest at, to be fair to him, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is feeling as though things are going against the grain. But also keep in mind there is no overtime in this qualifying session, so when we do see the clock strike 0, that is it. They are not allowed to finish the lap they're currently on. They will have to park it up, go to the pit lane, and therefore they've got to get things done now as quickly as they can because time is of the essence. As we do see Filip Kimovic making his way across that timing line, and as he comes on through, the number 30 driver here heads towards the corner, and well, through turn 1 he jumps ahead there of William Chandler, but then gets demoted on down because we've just had some significant improvements there. And well, Felix Smoggy jumps up to 4th place, goes to the grass, invalidates his last potential lap, but I think he feels as though he's got everything done and he'll be very happy with that one. Meanwhile, Martin Blankenstein has jumped back up to 7th place. We've also seen Marlin Schwab jump all the way from what was 13th all the way up to 6th. So Schwab finding some late time there, and well, the DLR FP1 driver finding late improvements. He'll be very pleased with that, albeit as he comes down in towards Shell Oil's Bend. Well, if he can get to 6th, how much further can he go? Can anybody go further here? Janos Wenzel coming towards the timeline very shortly, makes his way under braking. And as he does so, the 313 driver here rolls his way out the corner, heads towards the timeline. What's it going to be for him as Mav Garner improves to 15th ahead of Otto Garris? And well, right now, Venz will be grateful he's not been demoted, but can he promote himself? And the answer is no, he cannot. The best he will do is 14th here today. In terms of the qualifying session, you have to do it all in the race. As Otto Garris hands them through, and well, Kieran Sharp has made his way to the pit lane. Jack Southwood's coming to the pit lane. So we're into our final couple of lappers now, as we do see Garris coming out to the final bend. And what's this one going to be for him? As meanwhile, Marlon Schwab is on also an improving lap, at least for his opening sector. And well, Otto Garris jumps back up to 13th there, so he does find a little bit of time. But anybody else finding some time out there? Marlon Schwab coming on around still. That's heading up from Knickerbrook now. In fact, no, that's Deer Leap there. As he comes to that timeline, what's it going to be for him? And he was in 6th place. Does he find more time? The answer is no. So he's going to stay where he is. Oh, goodness me. Somebody's got it rolled there. That is the car that's gone very well. That's Filip Klimovic. And well, both drivers there making contact to each other. Coming out the final corner. Oh, that's gone wrong there for Pavel Grilica. And the Polish driver had to toe to the pits there, making a big error. Just as he was pushing so hard, he was on for a personal best. But instead now he's going to settle for 14th place at the very best he can do. Meanwhile, we do have Joe Pinder heading towards the line. And with 10 seconds left on the clock, is he going to get across the line in time? I don't think he is. I think this is going to be out by about 2 seconds, and he wants this lap to be a good one. But then he's into the pit lane. He won't get it done. And meanwhile, Janus Wenzel runs out of time. That's qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. And well, with that in mind, we're going to start to make our way to the grid for race number 1. So the drivers make the way onto the grid. This will line up for the first of our 2 sprint races here in the Cheshire countryside at the Oulton Park International Circuit for round 4 of the Sim Racing Collective Porsche Cup on iRacing. And as we can see, taking pole position, it is Milos Meski on his debut. The Kukas crew driver there absolutely leading the way in qualifying by 64 thousandths over Kieran Sharp, the championship leader for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. On row number 2, we'll see there Jamie Nuttall starting in 3rd for Cracked Racing, just ahead of Felix Moggy. The 2 teammates together there, and Cracked Racing hoping that this is their day where they're able to strike back versus TSRC in the Team Championship. Guillaume Hamling starts in 5th there for Cracked Racing ahead of Marlon Schwab for DLR FP1. And the German driver right now not too far off, and in only a 10th being the separation of the 2 of them. And then it was a sizable gap by comparison going back to 7th place there of a further attempt to Martin Blankensteiner. But the Cracked Racing driver will know that given the performances between himself and the German driver, that is a gap that he wants to bring down as quickly as he can. He's going to be in the company for the row number 4 of none other than Jack Southwood there for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. And we do see him in the end just sneaking into 8th place within a second of the pole sitter. But Southfield's pace here definitely not we saw at Sebring, and I imagine he's still trying to improve. Then we do see Samuel Kramers in 9th there for DLR FP1. Only a further, what was 10th behind, and it was a further 10th to none other than Arnsolono for the Kukas crew, and the theme coming really now that it's a 10th to a 10th to a 10th. Behind the Swede, it will be Filip Klimovic, who starts 11th there for Kukas crew. He was a further 10th off, and there was a further 2.5 tenths to William Chun there for Cracked Racing, who starts in 12th. Outside of the top 12, starting in 13th place, we will see none other than Otto Garris, the Flying Dutchman, who had some late improvements, but also had a bit more time in his pocket, it would seem. Have Pavel Grilica, whose spin coming out of Lodge Bend on the final qualifying lap for himself definitely ruined his opportunities of what could have been starting inside the top 10 for the first time this season. Still, he'll be starting 14th ahead of none other than Janus Wenzel, and the privateer followed up on the 8th row of the grid by Mav Garner for TSRC Esports. Raymond van Zutphen starts in 17th place with a Flying Dutchman ahead of Gareth Ronda, the Cracked Racing driver, and completing the top 20 it will be Joe Pinder, the privateer, and Martin Foster for RPMS Simsport. Starting last but not least, in 21st place, meanwhile, it's going to be Mitch Wollaston, the Canadian driver there for Aspire, in the end getting a lap on the board, albeit 3 seconds off the next time. I can imagine right now he's still trying to get to grips here with the Oulton Park circuit. But that's how they all stand, ladies and gentlemen, and we're almost absolutely itching and ready to go here for all of our drivers, as they all do sit on the grid. And, well, we are just waiting for the last couple of cars to get themselves into position. And once they do, on will go the lights. Well, I do believe we're now only 20 seconds away from seeing those lights go on, ladies and gentlemen. All of our drivers are in position, and well, the tension is powerful. You could cut it with a knife here. And note, of course, the front row starts slightly uphill, so starting on the second row is where you get the best starts on the very front of the field. But there's a short run down towards turn 1, but will it be Metzgy or will it be Sharp who leads out to the opening corner? We will see. Here come the lights. So as the revs rise, it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5. Firing lights. And it's lights out and away we go here for the first of 2 sprint racing round 4 of the championship as Milos Metzger leads them away. Sharp not having the best of starts then. Jamie Nuttall trying to go around the outside, but that's not going to be possible as they come through Oulton corner. And instead they have to wait. Meanwhile, 2 wide here between Hamling and Smoggy. Smoggy gets in the weaker start by comparison. And in the end, the Cracked Racing try moving ahead, but there'll be 2 wide down to Cascades. As further behind then we do see none other than what Samuel Kramer's having a decent start behind Klimovic and Schwab. But a bit of a run wide there. That is going to be on Solono taking a trip to the weeds. It's going to be 3 wide on the rejoin, taking some water with him as well. And in the end, well, they will settle the differences, but who gets ahead of whom? And Samuel Kramer's moving ahead of Marlon Schwab there, and well, Solono falls back. Klimovic gains all the places by comparison as they come in towards Shell Oils Bend. Looking down the outside there, that was a bit bold and brave from Cracked Racing's William Chandler. A bit of a squeaky bum moment there under braking. I suspect he hit a small patch of water and then made some side-to-side contact with Grillica, but he did survive it. Meanwhile, we have lost one driver from the start of the race. It's Raymond Van Zutphen. He's been involved in an instant. We will try and get a replay of that when we can, ladies and gents. That's very unfortunate because otherwise everyone's had a clean start. But coming down the hilltop right now, we can see there, well, Samuel Kramer's under pressure from Solono and Schwab. These 2 fighting each other. More so than fighting over Kramer's at the moment, but coming through the Hislop chicane. Marlon Schwab, they're taking a little bit of a touch of grass, and Arn Solono is able to go from what's outside to inside. Lovely move there from Solono, moving back into 10th place. But now going towards the end of this open lap, and well into Druids Bend there. That was a cheeky sneak peek, if we've ever seen one from Jack Southend. And then Martin Blankensteiner is put off by it through Druids, and that's going to cause him to lose not just 1, but potentially 2 places here. Here comes Klimovic up the inside, and well, the Kukas crew driver's going to make the move stick. Up in the 7th place now. What a start he's had in the number 30. He's moved all the way from 11th to 7th already. He is flying right now, and I don't know where this was in qualifying. It wasn't there, but definitely in this race so far, he's picking up the pieces like nobody else. But meanwhile, we do see Otto Karas battling side by side with Solono. Solono trying to hold on the outside. That's not going to work out for him as they come down the hill, and still Schwab holding on for a little bit longer. But look at the queue that they're building up behind you. You see this fighting's really cost them time. It's Grillica looking for a move. Your 56 driver, they're not quite able to find it as we ride on board, looking down over the front of his car. Now as he gets closer and closer in the roar and the score up towards Island Bend. Well, 2 wide in front there, and well, it's going to be a move up the inside, and Grillica trying to goal in. Well, he's going to go to the grass there. He understeers wide, carries way too much speed to the bend. A lot of confidence there. You can't fault him for it, but he does rejoin safely. And Pavel Grillica for Kukas crew falls back there into 16th place. Well, it's going so well, but unfortunately it's now gone so backwards. However, he's still got opportunities, and that's the thing we love to see there. And to be fair, as long as he's giving it a go, we can't fault him for it. Samuel Kramer's still fighting with Solono. Solono on the inside this time. And the Kukas crew driver trying to go up the inside of the DLR FP1 car. And well, they were 2 wide previously. Now they are 2 wide again. Elbows out between them. And there's going to be a bit more contact. And well, I think it escalated there quite rapidly. And Samuel Crane's being turned around. He won't be too pleased about that. And well, I think both drivers had a little chat after the race about that one. But definitely not a good look for either of them. But meanwhile, look at this. Because they're coming towards Druids Bend right now. Otto Karas does have Schwab and Solono right behind him, queuing up. And then we also do have now William Chandler, Janus Svensson, Mav Garner all there. And they're all bobbing and weaving the way on through. But right now, nobody wants to make a move here in towards turn number 16. So they know they're all going to lose time if they do so. But as all these drivers head towards the end of another lap. Meanwhile, after 2 laps of racing, it is Milos Metzger currently leading by the best part of a second ahead of Kieran Sharp. Then we have Jamie Nuttall in 3rd. William Hamling in 4th place just behind there. Coming down the hill through Cascades again. And it's Felix Smoggy in 5th ahead of Jack Southfield, 6th. And then we have Filip Klimovic in 7th place, just ahead of Martin Blankensteiner. Albeit that's going to change now. Got a poor run coming out of Cascades Bend. That corner's caught him out twice today now. And Klimovic is going to lose the place. And we drops down to 8th place there after having one of the best starts of everybody. Well, in fact, hold the phone on that one. He's going to make another move here. And well, poor exit coming out of Island Bend for Blankensteiner. And well, Klimovic right now, I'll tell you one thing, it doesn't matter what mistake he does, he absolutely goes all in for it as they roar the way in towards the chicane. And well, a little bit of a touch there, but both drivers surviving that one. And well, Blankensteiner definitely getting his elbows out as much as he possibly can. But coming down towards what will be the next chicane, well, Klimovic has fallen backwards. But I do wonder how long it'll be before he's thinking about that next opportunity, as behind them, well, it's the long queue of cars behind Otto Karas that is growing longer by the day. And Otto Karas right now definitely, I think, building the biggest train of them all. He's currently running in 9th place with Marlon Schwab round off the top 10 just behind. But indeed, that's just one car you see in the picture initially, and then you do start to see the headlights of every other car. We have now got a 7-car train here for 9th place. And remember, none of these drivers will be eligible for a slot inside the inverted grid. It's 6th place and upwards to the winner of this race. They'll be the ones who are eligible, so therefore this is all 4 points in the championship. As we get ready to come to the final corner of this lap, but nobody here able to make a move. And I think Otto Karas, the Flying Dutchman, he may not be the quickest out there, but he's definitely making his car the widest at the white points, and that is exactly what you've got to do when you haven't got the pace. But back to Kieran Sharp. He's under pressure from Jamie Nuttall. Nuttall this time trying to go around the outside at Cascade. From Denton's, he's picked up the momentum. And Will Sharp just holds his ground. The leader now almost 2 seconds clear is Netsky. So that does mean the fight for second now takes to the forefront of the entertainment. And so they're coming towards Island Bend. Hamling still watching there from behind as we do ride aboard the front bumper. Move looking up the inside there from what is Nuttall versus Sharp. That's not going to work. And remember that right now for Cracked Racing, they need to beat Kieran Sharp today if they want to try and cut the gap down to TSRC in the Teams Championship, because they've only got one more round to go after this one. So therefore getting every advantage they can here will help, albeit with Jack Southwood up to 5th place now. It's going to be a bit of a worry that Cracked Racing may be experiencing Sebring over again, which is for every place they take, it will be the TSRC cars that are a place ahead of them. To see whether that's the reality here as they bolt the way in towards Knickerbrook Corner. And well, to come roaring out that bend, we look to the YouTube chat for a brief moment and say hello to a few more of you. But meanwhile, well, we say hello to this battle here between Schwab and also on Solano. Solano up the inside, coming through the Hislop chicane. Lovely move there from Solano. He does it again. And Molnishov still with him as we do see William Chandramathgana and Pavel Grilica all on the back of the group. Then it's a further 4 seconds back to Joe Pinder, who's got Martin Foster for company. And Foster having come from 20th to 16th. He's hoping he can continue that journey for just a little bit longer. But as they carry on, we're going to take a quick look back in time to some of the big moments in the start of the race, including the race start. Now, of course, this is when all the drivers got underway, and as they did go green flag racing, what you are going to see here is off the launch, Kieran Sharp really struggling on the initial launch there, slow by comparison with what was Nuttall and also Hamling behind, and we did also get to see Hamling make this move around the outside of full place straight away, so he went on the attack very quickly and was able to get it done by the time they got down to turn number 3. But Raymond van Zutphen, meanwhile, the Flying Dutchman driver, what happened to him? It was a tap to the rear of the car there from, I believe, that was that the number 22 or the 230 there? I think it was the 230 of Gareth Ronda that tapped on the rear, and that's in the end being turned on around. Can we get the alternative perspective there from Ronda's car? I think we can, and well, you'll see Zutphen just in front, and well, it wasn't Gareth Ronda who made the contact with in the end. In fact, Ronda was clear, so I think Van Zutphen was just behind when it all went wrong. And well, in the end, not quite sure who made the contact, but we know that Van Zutphen was turned on around. But we also did have this on lap number 2 for Jamie Nuttall, as he was trying to chase furiously after Kieran Sharp, whereby just getting a bit too much speed into the opening bend, and in the end took the rallycross approach there. Several drivers behind also doing the same, a lot of confidence on the tyres coming quickly. We also had this for Pavel Grilica after making a good amount of progress. Well, the Kukas crew driver tried to go up the inside here into Island Bend and discovered why the inside you have to brake about 50 metres earlier when he went straight on. But thankfully, able to control the car and just gradually put himself back on at Shell Oils Bend. The suspension's definitely been rocked, but to be fair, he's been rocking it as well. As we come back to what happened to Samuel Kramers, this was the battle between himself and one of the Kukas crew drivers, side by side with the number 3 of Arnsolono. It got elbows out there and into the correct corner. Neither driver wanted to give up, and Kramers on the outside there. Well, that's what sent him on around. And then we did have this big moment for Mitch Wollaston at the end of lap number 2. This was coming in towards the Lodge Bend, and the Aspire driver made his way through the corner and lost the rear. Very similar instance to what happened to Pavel Grilica in qualifying. A bit too eager, and the rear of the car just letting go and say no. But back to your live racing we come, ladies and gentlemen. As we do, there has been a change of leader. We have had an instant for Milos Meski. We're going to have to get a replay of that when we can, but he's made a mistake of some description, and suddenly it's now Sharp who is leading. And, well, not quite exactly sure what's caused that, but we will find out very quickly indeed, as Meski now has Jamie Nuttall for close company. We're not even halfway through this race, and suddenly things have been turned upside down. And Mogzilla does ask there in the YouTube chat, is it wet? And, well, it's been filled in there by Garbador, which is drive a few puddles, a classic dry British race. And indeed, here in the northwest of England, this would be considered a classic dry race as they make the way up the hill, albeit not to be unfair to our counterparts all the way up in the Cheshire countryside. But if it's going to be wet, it's going to be wet at Oulton Park of all the circuits in the United Kingdom, with Silverstone becoming a close second, and of course Knockhill having its own climate up there, let alone its own 4 seasons. That being all the way up in Scotland, right towards the northern tip of the Highlands. But as we do see Meski making his way on through, we take a look back in time to see exactly what happened to him and why he fell to P2. So this was coming in toward the final corner, and a big snap there, a big twitch on the car, and that made him have to really back with the throttle there. Well done to him for holding it together. Many would have gone round there, gone straight on into the gravel, but not the Kukas crew driver there in the number 11. He had to then defend versus Jamie Nuttall, and he just about held on. But speaking of having to defend versus Jamie Nuttall, Nuttall now all over the back of him here as they come on around, and well, he tries to push each other right on board the dashboard of Nuttall's car. Now the Cracked Racing driver here knows that time is of the essence, because because of the fact he needs to clear the man in front of him and then he needs to go hunting. That's why time's of the essence. Even though he's got 10 minutes left, he does not want Sharp to pull away. As we do see Meski there go a little bit deep. It does seem as though he's been caught a little bit awry right now, and perhaps he's got to get himself recomposed here. And when you are leading for so long, a small unexpected mistake happens, suddenly that can really break your concentration as these drivers bounce and ricochet their way on towards now what will be the next set of quarters for the 7th time today. As Nuttall stays close, well, he's got a 2-second gap to Graham Hamlin, so he can afford to battle. It's not as though he's got the pressure of a driver breathing down his neck necessarily, so that's going to give him some breathing room. He doesn't want to spend too long on this one as they go over the rise. From them, we do look back to Hamlin. He's bringing Jack Southwood along with him. They're 4th and 5th, with Felix Smoggy completing your top 6 at the moment. And as all these drivers coming through, well, no fighting between them. We've got plenty of fighting back here. This is Samuel Kremers versus Janos Wenzel. Wenzel there trying to make the move stick, but is he going to be able to do so? No, he won't. And in the end, Samuel Kremers does outbrake him there in towards the head stop chicane, and he will take it back as they exit the Knickerbrook corner. But from them, Joe Pinder, meanwhile, well, he's got the pressure on Martin Foster right behind him. But from them, we have got change of us at the front of the field because Jamie Nuttall has just moved into lead coming out of Old Hall corner ahead of Milos Meski. We will get a replay of that shortly to show you how it actually changed. But there's change of foot everywhere right now, as we also do see fighters still. Pinder keeping Foster at bay. Foster trying to go around the outside of him at Old Hall Bend. And indeed, everybody right now getting stuck right into the fighting with each other throughout the field. It doesn't matter whether they're racing for 20th or alternatively first, everyone's enjoying themselves, and that's what we absolutely love to see at TSRC. As Pinder has Foster getting a better run and him coming out towards the opening bend. Well, Foster looking to the inside of Denton's. That's going to put him on the outside of Cascade. But Pinder there going very tight to the inside. Onto the brakes nice and early. He does keep it together thereabouts. As, hold up a second, that's Felix Smoggy recovering there. That's at Show Oil's Bend. And he's taking a rallycross approach to do this. And he does come back on. But I suspect there's been a big incident for him. And I wonder if he's had contact with the tyre barriers. Well, first and foremost, whilst all that's happened, we need to take a look back at exactly how second place has changed hands. And here we go. So this was the run coming all the way down towards the final corner on lap number 7. Now Meski on the outside there. Jamie Nuttall went all in under braking for that. Well, diving to the inside. Lovely move initially. But how did things then change? Well, coming over Deer Leap, was going to Meski on the outside. He was going to try and take the classic racing line. Nuttall went fully defensive and in towards the opening corner. Meski had to pull the car to the right. You can see there the fact he saw the puddle at the last moment. He forgot that the puddle was there because he was so intent on the fighting. He had to yoink the car over to the right, and thankfully Nuttall had given him some space. If not, that could have been a huge contact between both of them. So if I think Meski afterwards, when he looks back at that, might actually be going over to Jamie Nuttall in the paddock and saying thank you to him. I don't think Nuttall gave him the space intentionally, but in the end, definitely that space has saved them both there having a near miss. But meanwhile, whilst all plays out between them, Martin Foster's parked up on the side of the road. William Chandler's towed to the pits as well. So we've got a bit more drama going on here, and right now, as we've got a car around, that's Jazz Wenzel going around on the exit of turn 16. Well, we come back and it's to the scene of some absolute pandemonium playing out here. We're going to need a few more replays before this race is said and done, I can tell you that, as we do see Wenzel getting himself back together. And as he does so, well, we start off with the big moment for Felix Smoggy. Now, this was the correct racing drive heading in towards Island Bend. Took some grass on entry there, and in the end, the rear of the car was already unsettled as a result of that. Went skidding across the grass, and at that point, well, grazed the tyre barrier. And he'd be grateful for the fact it could have been far, far worse, but it was not. Meanwhile, we had this big moment for Martin Foster only moments later. This was Foster making his way in towards Druids Bend, the RPM SimSport driver. And, well, already damaged there, the front right of the car dropping. I think he's been in contact with William Chandler. And, well, if so, as evasive action being taken there, we get an earlier replay of what happened to Chandler. This was the correct race drive. No, completely separate instance, in fact. William Chandler just losing it coming out to turn 16, much like Grillica in qualifying and also previously other drivers as well in this race. So Martin Foster, we wonder if he's hit a curb hard, because it might be a curb strike for Martin Foster that's broken the suspension, and the curbs here at Oulton Park are high. Alternatively, has he had a run in with one of the tyre barriers there? And as much as they are tyres, they are modelled as if they're made out of concrete here on iRacing, and therefore you hit them, you're going to feel it very quickly. Chopin's gone a bit deep there at Druids. He gives up 2 places to Ronda and Kremers. So Ronda's now up from 18th to 13th. And Gareth Ronda showing here today that all you need to do for correct racing is stay out of trouble. And well, trouble has definitely not found him so far, although Samuel Kremers now wants to try and trouble him for a position. But as we head in towards the final quarter of this race, well, 15 minutes has flown by as quick as that. And, well, Kramer's still looking for an opportunity as me or Jack Southfield has Gwellam Hamling close behind him, and the white machine right now for Cracked Racing on the attack here. But of course, catching is one thing, passing is another, as the late great Murray Walker once said, and definitely here at Oulton Park that is a theme that runs true, and you really do have to get your elbows out or have a significant pace advantage if you are going to try and make a move happen. But as they make their way through the corner, named after of course a pair of ladies' undergarments, there's a full story on that. We'll probably come to that during the warm-up between the two races, as it will help fill in some time. Well, meanwhile right now Hamlin not getting his panties in a twist as he tries to go on the attack versus Southfield. Southfield just holding his lines here, and you can see in the way that Hamlin's trying to position the car, he wants to carry all the speed. That dirty edge just forces him to run a little bit wide. But behind them, Otto Karras versus Arnsolono. Well, the Kukas crew drive on the inside. Karras tries to defend it outside. And well, in the end, he just about does so. My good lord, that is brave there from where it's Otto Karras. Many would have gone wide there, but not the Dutchman in the number 79. No wonder he's part of the Flying Dutchman. That was absolutely spectacular there to hold the position versus Solona. And Pavel Grilica has caught up as a result. So suddenly they're fighting. Meanwhile, there's fighting in towards turn number 1. That is going to be Filip Klimovic around the outside of Martin Blankensteiner. Blankensteiner still there for now, but the Kukas crew driving in will have the inside into Cascades. If he can park it on Apex, he might be safe, but not if Blankenstein's going to try and cut it back. The answer is the Danishman is not able to get it done, and he does fall back there, drops down to 7th place. A lovely bit of work there from Klimovic, as it was a brilliant bit of defending from Otto Karras just before that. And well, the fighting carries on here inside that top 10. I suspect it's going to be absolutely on the limit all the way to the very finish here. And, well, this is just the first of our 2 races. And remember, there are no pit stops in these races. As meanwhile, Samuel Kramer's trying to find a way in. That's not possible. But meanwhile, what is possible is the fact that Milos Meski, with a slowdown penalty, has now had Jack Southfield past him. And Gwellam Hamling has not been able to pass him. So it does mean TSRC now, they are first and third. It's Sebring all over again because Nuttall and Hamling meanwhile are 2nd and 5th. So after this race, TSRC would be extending their advantage in the Teams Championship going into the 2nd race of the day. Bemeski right now really the outlier here for Kukas crew, joining the grid as of this round. And as he comes down towards turn number 16, we can see Hamlin there close, but not close enough to try and make a move here, but he needs to get a move on, because otherwise right now TSRC will be smiling at this, and well, Hamlin definitely won't be, but as they head up towards another lap, penultimate lap of racing, Hamlin looking to the inside, but a bit too far back there to go for it, and keep in mind they're racing more towards the centre of the road there, given the puddles on the outside. Well, an inside line there's going to be even trickier than it would normally be as Hamlin goes to the grass, comes back on, but that's going to cost him a bit of time, and also cause him to receive a yellow flag, which he does burn quite quickly here, albeit he will lose time on the run down Lakeside up towards Island Bend, and in fact still going to burn that time very gradually, but he eventually will get there. That he tries to do so. Meanwhile, a peek up the inside there from Samuel Kramers versus Gareth Ronda. And these drivers making the way towards what will be the penultimate lap now. Ronda holding on for 13th. He's creating a long line of cars behind him as the Cracked Racing driver heads in towards turn of 1. Oh my good lord, that's very late on the brakes there for what was the FP1 car of Samuel Kramers. He goes deep and he gives the places up there for Joe Pinder and Marlon Schwab. I think was just a little bit too enthusiastic, and then realising what he'd done, decided to lift off the brakes to let the car roll deep into the corner, and that way knocked out the rear of the Briton. If he'd gone fully onto the brakes, the ABS would have triggered, and I think he would have been right into the back of the British driver instead. But in towards Island Bend right now, Kramers, with that small mistake, loses 2 places for the price of trying to find 1, and now he's got an even harder job to do, and he's only got 1 more lap after this to try and get it done. Well, it'll be starting where he finished this race come the next one, given he's not inside the top 6, and I suspect right now he'll want to be starting 14th if he can, if not 13th, or he's going to have one of the mega starts that we have seen him deliver earlier on in the season. We'll have to wait and see, because Pavel Grilica, meanwhile, well, he's ahead of his teammate on Solono, and intriguingly here, with the Kukas crew driver, he might have started 14th after the dismay of his final qualifying lap, and indeed it was a lap that would have put him inside the top 10, where he's proven that he has got top 10 pace here, but can he hold on for a little bit longer? As our leaders have gone to the final tour of the circuits where to understand it, we will be getting a grand total of 13 laps in this one, but Grilica right now trying to find a way to attack Otto Karras as we see the white flag waving there, but I think Arnsolono as well had to play the game, which is to be patient with his teammate, but also he might internally be wanting to make the move to improve his drivers' championship standings, even though of course the team's championship doesn't matter which way the two finish. As long as they finish together the way they are, they will be picking up the points they want. But back to the front of the field, in fact hold the phone on that one, because that was a run wide. And from Pavel Grilica coming out of Cascade, and Sunny Solano will take the 9th place back, but a bit of an unconventional way to swap the places around. I don't think it was intended to be fair, but they've made it work. And now can Solano perhaps go on the attack versus Karras, although the gap is 8 tenths going into the final half of this lap. But as they make their way onwards, meanwhile, we were going to say, here are your leaders right now. And, well, definitely an image we have seen in the first 2 rounds this season. Kieran Sharp just being ahead of Jamie Nuttall time and time again. And right now, the TSRC driver here doing everything right as Nuttall continues to try and push as much as he can for Cracked Racing. We see a driver pulling over to the side there. That is Martin Foster, respecting the blue flag, staying out of the way of the leaders. But coming into the final quarter, ladies and gentlemen, well, for Kieran Sharp, he had to make his way from second to first. But after that, whereas his rivals have made mistakes, he has not, and Kieran Sharp will take victory in race number 1 of the day at the Oulton Park circuit ahead of Jamie Nuttall. It will then be a 1-3 for TSRC with Jack Southwood just ahead of Milos Meski, and it'll be Guillaume Hamling in 5th place with Filip Klimovic completing a run to 6th place. And for the Kukas crew driver, it does mean he will be your pole sitter for race number 2. Martin Blankenstein in the end just missing out, taking 7th ahead of Otto Keris, who brings on over trainer cars behind him, including Arnsolona and Pavel Grilica. That's your top 10. And it'll be Mav Gardner, who after some early escapades, moving from 16th to 11th. 11th is where he stayed for TSRC. Head of Felix Smoggy, who comes on home in the very colourful car, but he won't be too cheerful, given the fact he's gone from 4th to 12th. It's not been his race, but he's kept away from the barriers for the most part. And it'll be Gareth Rondo, who comes out the final quarter. And what a drive here for the Cracked Racing driver, going from 18th to 13th. And he held off Joe Pinder, Marlin Schwab, Samuel Kremers, and Janos Wenzel in the process. And Janos Wenzel, here he comes, the 17th place privateer. As he comes across that line, he will be your penultimate finisher of the race, and still to finish the race, albeit a lap down here, it is going to be none other than Raymond van Zutphen, who after the open lap incident where he was sent wide coming down the hill from turn 2 into 3, well, still he's been able to finish the race, and that's what we do love to see. And your last finisher of the race will be William Chandler, who is in the pit lane with work being done on the car. So as Raymond van Zutphen comes across line, that will complete your finishing order. And what a race it has been, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you one thing, we've still got plenty more to come here. We are not done here at Oulton Park, because just around the corner is race number 2. But before we get to that and the arrival of some rain, which is going to serve to mix things up, let's quickly walk you through those race results, subject to any steward inquiries. And as we can see, after an absolutely entertaining first 20 minutes of the day here for race number 1 of the Sim Racing Collective Porsche Cup, brought to you on iRacing from the Oulton Park International Circuit. Round 4's opening race had Kieran Sharp take victory there, taking the lead from Milos Meski early on when Meski made a mistake. Well, Sharp didn't need to be asked twice to do so, and in the end bringing home the win by just under a second over Jamie Nuttall. Well, it's now 4 wins in 5 races for Kieran Sharp. Can he continue the trend here in race number 6? Well, we'll see very shortly. Nuttall, meanwhile, having to settle for another podium after missing the racing at Sebring, but he hasn't missed a trick. He's on the pacer leaders. Head of Jack Southfield there, who qualified poorly, but has made his way through to a 3rd place finish for TSRC. Next, Milos Meski in 4th place for Kukas crew, having taken pole position. Small mistakes cost him places in the race, and he'll be hoping for more in race number 2 ahead of Guillaume Hamling, and the Cracked Racing driver there ahead of Filip Klimovic. And Klimovic in the end will be your pole sitter of race number 2 with the 6th place finish in race 1. Martin Blankensteiner taking 7th there for Cracked Racing ahead of Otto Keris, the Flying Dutchman, the best part of 3 seconds behind. And then Arnsolona in 9th, just off of him, ahead of Pavel Grilica, who with a late error lost 9th and finished in 10th. 1 and 2 Kukas crew drives. It was then the Sim Racing Collective Esports' Mav Garner ahead of Felix Smoggy, with Gareth Ronda in 13th place there, just ahead of Joe Pinder, Marlin Schwab, and Samuel Kremers. And it was a further 5 seconds back to Janos Wenzel, with Martin Foster, the first 2 drives, a lap down there in 18th. One, the RPMS Simsport drive was also lapped down to Mitch Wollaston and also to Raymond van Zutphen. And then outside of those top 20 finishers, unfortunately, we did have what was difficulty and a 5-lap down finish as classified by William Chan there for Cracked Racing. But that was just race number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and well, there's even more racing to come. But as the rain does fall here in the Cheshire countryside, and well, there was always going to be the risk of rain coming back. Well, it's not at every point in the circuit right now, but I can tell you one thing, our drivers will now need to try and gauge whether it's the right idea to be on the wet tyre, or is it a better idea to be on the slick? There are arguments for and against The argument, of course, for being on the slick tyre is that the circuit is not wet enough to mandate the wet tyre by default, and if you are able to keep your tyre temperature, you will be quicker. But of course, that's going to be the ultimate all-in risk versus reward, because on the slick tyre, every time you drive on a wet patch, you are losing temperature. You are also naturally losing grip, because the slick tyre is, as it says on the tin, a slick. It has no tread blocks, unlike a conventional road tyre that you would see on your car. And, well, of course, you're not allowed to drive slicks on the road. They are illegal, at least in the United Kingdom. I don't know about elsewhere in the world, but as we do see Kieran Sharp right now experimenting with wets with none other and then what is Janos Wenzel behind him there on, I believe, also, no, Janos Wenzel on dry tyres. Well, Wenzel demonstrating why the dry tyre might be the right tyre to be on. But as these drivers will cool on down, it's time to make way to the grid for our second race and see how they all line up, and also who has gone for what tyre here in what could be a bit of a wetter race. So as all of our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our second and final race of the day. And as we can see, taking pole position there, it is none other than Filip Klimovic for Kukas Crew. Line up in pole ahead of Guillaume Hamlin. The Kukas Crew drive ahead of the Cracked Racing drive by in the end. Only a limited margin in the race, albeit it was the other way around, of course. But in qualifying, it was much the same between the two of them. And starting on row number 2, it'll be Milos Meski, who after the difficulty of what was race number 1, then will be hoping for a much more straightforward race number 2. However, he'll be joined on the second round of the grid by Jack Southfield for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. And it will be Jamie Nuttall for Cracked Racing starting 5th ahead of Kieran Sharp, who will complete your top 6. Outside the top 6 there and behind the race 1 winner, it is going to be none other than Martin Blankenstein for Cracked Racing ahead of Otto Garrett, with the Flying Dutchman there in 8th. And then we will have Arne Solana for Kukas Crew ahead of Pavel Grilica, rounded off the top 10 there with the two Kukas Crew teammates together. Then we'll have Mav Garner in 11th place for the Sim Racing Collective Esports ahead of Felix Moggy. And behind the Cracked Racing driver, it is going to be none other starting 13th than what will be Gareth Ronda. He's behind his teammate, but ahead of the privateer of Joe Pinder. And then we do have DLR FP1's Marlon Schwab in 15th ahead of Samuel Kramers, his teammate. The team struggling in race number 1. They'll be hoping the struggles are behind them now. And it'll be Janos Wenzel starting 17th ahead of Martin Foster for RPMS Simsport, with Mitch Wollaston starting in 19th for Aspire, ahead of the Flying Dutchman's Raymond van Zutphen. Completing your grid in 21st place, William Chandler with nothing to lose. He'll start 21st of them all, and knowing this race has surely got to be better than the previous one. So that's your grid, ladies and gentlemen, and well, we're not too far away from seeing ourselves go green flag racing for the second time today. But as everyone takes their spot on the grid, well, who has gone for what tyre? Now you can see then the timing tower, several drivers, in fact the majority, going for wet. However, Janos Wenzel is going for slicks. He's going to take the gamble, is Wenzel. Is this going to be an inspired gamble? Because the rain is not falling everywhere. Felix Moggy right now still trying to decide what tyre to go to. He's not put his car on the grid as yet. You can see that slot towards the rear. But everyone right now, I think, waiting to understand. And obviously, Felix Moggy, if he's not getting in the car right now, they have 3 minutes to go to the grid. Once all the cars are on the grid, that 3-minute window will be cut whenever all cars are there. But Smoggy finally jumps into his car. He's also gone to the wet tyres, so they're all on wet, minus Janos Wenzel, who is going to be starting on slicks, and with 30 seconds to go right now. Well, they're all locked in with regards to their tyre choices at this point. We are just waiting to see what exactly is going to happen when we go green flag racing. Will the rain come on as many are expected? Or will the slick tyre prove to be the right tyre? Of course, it is this man further down the order, Janos Wenzel, who is the gambler. You can see the drizzle from the onboard of the car, not visible on the cameras, but is that drizzle enough to cause problems? That is the question that we need the answer to. Thankfully, we're about to get the answers, ladies and gentlemen, because here we go. The lights are turning on. And for the second and final time today, it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's phone lights. And it's lights down. Away we go here once again at Oulton Park as they all get away. Now as they come down towards turn number 1, it's looking so far at least as though this circuit is similar to how it was in the previous race. But there's a bit of rain on camera as Filip Klimovic right now struggling through the corner with Guillaume Hamlin and Milos Meski battling side by side just behind. We're coming down in towards turn number 3 here. All these drivers right now very close together. It's a much tighter spread as they roll down the hill. And further back, Janos Wenzel already up into 13th place. He has gained 4 places already as a lot of drivers are struggling on their tyres. And well, Roy the way onwards. Wenzel right now, it might be inspired. He seems to have a lot more pace. We do have a black flag for Mav Gardner for a jump start. So Gardner losing out as Wenzel on the outside there trying to survive, but he finds some space to work with as Jamie Nuttall has to go defensive versus Kieran Sharp. Sharp right now trying to go around the outside to make the move. Stickers a bit heavier the rain there at Shell Oils, but right now they're going to stay exactly as they were. And indeed, the only change we had at the front is that Milosmeski has cleared Hamling in the run down towards turn number 3. Meanwhile, further back, there's more to come as they all go 2 by 2 here coming through the chicane. Mitch Wollaston as well has had some good gains so far, albeit gets elbowed out there a little bit and drops back down the order. And as soon as we praise him, it's all come backwards. That's a bit of commentator's curse if I've seen it before as they come down the hill. And we'll Remington Zutphen right at the back of this group right now, but hoping that perhaps he might be able to get into the mix. But there we see Wenzel now down to 15th place. The privateer having a bit of a poor run through Shell Oils Bend, and we're still on those slick tyres at the moment. And it looks like those slicks, they're giving and taking right now. And he'll be just hoping that with all these cars out of the circuit now going up to speed, this will help dry the circuit. That's what he's got to prey on. Now, understandably, these wet tyres, of course, having a big tread block on them, that's to help displace the water. But they are tyres that need to be constantly cooled down. They need to use the water on the surface to cool them, but naturally the surface will dry up if no more rain keeps coming. That's the thought process there as Wenzel has to go defensive versus Schwab. And in the incoming through the corner, he's struggling for grip there as Marlon Schwab goes all the way around the outside, just keeps it in track limits. And Marlon Schwab will win a drag race now, heading up towards turn number 1. And when it's 2 by 2 as they come down towards the opening corner for the second time. And we'll go in defensive Wenzel every step of the way, keeping on the driest possible line he can find. Meanwhile, Schwab, he can use all the road for now. Martin Foster battling with Samuel Kramers, fighting at the very back of the field. And meanwhile, as they come down into the next braking zone, you can see that Wenzel struggling, understeers. And as we Wenzel going straight into the side of the DLRFP1 car, and that's the slick tyre there. It hasn't got the grip, and that's why he's lost out there under braking. Just no grip in the tyre, and for Wenzel, what was an inspired choice may not be inspired anymore. But meanwhile, as Foster still battles with Kramers here, you can see William Chandler queuing up behind. Well, move up the inside potentially from Kramers there, trying to go in for the RPMS SimSport machine, and he will get the job done there. But meanwhile, whilst we focus on everything that's been going on further down the order, let's come right back up to the front of the order. And here is Filip Klimovich, still ahead of Milosmeski. The two Kukas crew teammates together right now with Gwellam Hamling under pressure from Jack Southfield, who dives his way out the inside there like an Olympic swimmer as it makes his way out of the corner and in towards turn number 9. Well, right now, your number 351 driver here, absolutely shell-shocked by that one, I would imagine. And Jack Southfield, well, showing you the fact he doesn't need to be too close to go for a move, but also that did require Hamling to be aware of the fact he was coming. We're going through Druids Bend, well, as they queue up on each other. Kieran Sharp and Jamie Nuttall still together, and Sharp has found his way past Nuttall since the last time we looked at them. So there has been a swap between these two on lap number 2. And what I suspect right now, they're trying to get themselves into an order here to be able to move forward, because they've got a long line of cars all catched up behind. And Pavel Grilica, meanwhile, well, he's still on the back here of Mav Gardner, can't find a way in, at least at this time. But in terms of what's happening with Janos Wenzel, he has got the car back on the road. However, I don't think he's going to come off those slick tyres. I think he's going to commit to them as much as he can. There he is right now with Mitch Wollaston a bit further behind. But from him into the opening corner, and goes Joe Pinder on the inside there. A bit more grip and a bit more confidence now. These wet tyres definitely switched on at this point. And we can see Gareth Ronda just watching on behind as Marlon Schwab there, also thinking about what he can do. No change between there. Martin Foster still putting pressure on Samuel Kramers, but William Chandler is there also to potentially respond. As I do look at my Conte booth window, I can hear a Porsche coming down the pit lane, and it is Janos Wenzel. Wenzel has come in. He is going to the wet tyres, ladies and gentlemen. The slicks were not the right call, and it is going to put him well down out of this race now. However, he'll be hoping that perhaps everyone in front of him can have a bit of disaster, and therefore he might be able to catch his way back up, albeit prove himself a wet weather master. As Klimovich continued holding on to lead. Out of Shell Oils there in towards what was the Britain chicane. Definitely no pace in the car there. So it does seem as though, as much as he is quick towards the end of lap, at the start and the midpoint of lap, Izvescu is the quicker driver, albeit you can see that Milosmeski run a little bit wide through these bends at the moment, getting tantalisingly close to touching the grass and also the white lines, and there's no grip out there if you do so, and Jack Southfield is gradually closing. Mav Gardner still has a black flag to his name, and you can't see that in the time tower, but we do have that in our data tower here. And what that does mean for your number 805 driver is a problem, whereby essentially he has got to come into the pits within the opening 3 laps of racing to serve what will be a drive-through penalty. It may even be a stop-and-go penalty for the jump start, and he does step aside there a little bit, and I think he's realising now the writing's on the wall. As much as he's enjoying the fighting, he's going to be out of the fighting shortly, and he does have Martin Schropp try to go around the outside of him, but that jump start is only going to lead to one conclusion, and that conclusion is this. He has to come in, and he puts himself now out of racing order, and unfortunately it's a trip to the pits he did not want to make. But we do see there Chandler looking around the outside of Samuel Kramer's into turn one. Chandler's got all the confidence, but he's got the outside line as well. Car skids loose, and in the end, Schwab just holding on as Samuel Kramer's does so as well. And Martin Foster right now coming up behind them as Chandler weaving one way, then the other. But the RPM SimSport driver right now on the back of this queue, and then there's no way through. But as things do cooling down for a little bit between these drivers, well, meanwhile, we take a look back at some of the big moments in the starter race, including none other than this move by Kieran Sharp on Jamie Nuttall. Now, this was towards the end of lap number 1, in fact, so as they were about to go on to lap number 2, Nuttall just ran wide there at turn number 16, and Sharp was able to squeeze his way around the outside to the inside from Deer Leap in towards Old Hall Bend, and Nuttall did not have a response. We also had this big moment for Janos Wenzel. This was the moment that really sealed the deal, which was that he was not on the right state to go into the slick tyre, and when in on that inside line, no grip available, made side-to-side contact there with the DLR FP1 car, but thankfully it was only he who got caught out by it, albeit we wouldn't wish it on him as well, but well, only one car in the end. Unfortunately, it had to be the man on the slicks, and that really cemented why the slick tyre was not the right choice. Meanwhile, we had this for Mitch Wollaston. Only moments later, the Aspire driver at Shells Bend, the rear of the car starting to let go, and almost in slow motion there, although that was at 1 speed, and in the end it all went round on him. And we also had, of course, some difficulty only moments later for Janos Wenzel. This was at the start of lap number 4, so after he'd gone to the wet tyre, and well, in the end, in towards turn number 1, takes a lot of speed, and in the end, the car just simply not gripping up, still trying to get some heat into those tyres. But back to live racing we come. And as we do, almost a third of the race is done, and Filip Klimovich right now still ahead of Meski and Southfield, the top 3 together, although Jack Southfield, they're very eager to come down towards Cascades, almost in this race. Cascade, like a set of dominoes there, all falling down, and well, almost run out onto the grass there. So Southfield taking the enthusiasm, but just perhaps needs to dial it down a notch, or just simply up his braking zones by the best part, about 5 to 10 metres, because he's definitely proving to be a very quick driver at the moment. He was the fastest out there on the previous lap by a considerable margin, by the best part of 3 attempts compared to anybody else. As we can definitely see now, the rain is accumulating towards what is the Shell Oils Bend side of the circuit, so the far reaches of the circuit, which are inaccessible to spectators on a race day. You can only go as far as what is essentially the Britain chicane when you visit the circuit. But right now for Jack Southfield, well, as he visits it, he's visiting every millimetre of the tarmac right now, not all of it for good reasons. Meanwhile, we come to a battle here between Raymond van Zutphen and none other than what is Mav Gardner, and Gardner goes around outside to inside there through Shell Oils and will take the place back for 18th, and well, they do have Mitch Willison a little bit further behind. Baz van Zutphen now tries to follow the TSRC machine. Things are calming down between drivers, at least for now, and therefore this is starting to move into a little bit more strategic race. Now again, we should iterate, this is a sprint race round, so therefore we are not expecting any pit stops unless drivers have picked up penalties of some description. And well, there's a penalty to be paid, because that is Filip Klimovich making a mistake at Druids, and Jack Selford jumps up the inside immediately. So now Milos Meski is your leader, and well, we'll get a replay of what exactly happened there shortly, so I think that's how the lead has changed overall, as well as Southfield moving into control of 2nd place. And behind, we can see there's Willem Hamling just trying to stay clear of Sharp and Nuttall, as those two still nose to tail, and Martin Blankensteiner, he's coming forward as well. But there is Nuttall now, only 2 attempts behind Sharp, coming down the hill in towards Cascades this time. Doesn't think about the move, but Sharp has a bit of a wobble, and he absolutely twitches his way to the gravel. The number 23 driver goes to rejoin here, and he does so as safely as he can. But Sharp there with a tiny mistake. I believe he might have just simply touched a very small pool of water on the right-hand side of the road coming down into Cascades, or even touched the grass of the front right tyre, and that was enough to unsettle the car, and then he's fallen down to 7th place. Even the very best out there can make small mistakes, and that mistake proving quite costly. 2 places lost there, and places that are not going to be easily regained. As he makes a mistake, we come back to exactly how the lead has changed this race, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. So this was Klimovich making his way through Watertown in towards Druids Bend, onto the brakes, so the car twitched there, understeered after a little bit of a wobble, and we're in the end rejoining, and it was only coming out of Druids there where Southfield had the momentum to go for it. So Southfield had actually had a poor run. What I'm hearing in my ear was Knickerbrook Corder. That cost him some time, but thankfully for him, Klimovich had an even worse run there at Druids Bend, and it gave him the chance to make his way on through. And of course, we did have this big moment for Kieran Sharp only months later. And this was on board, looking down over the front of Sharp's car, and, well, the rear of the car letting go there, and in the end, well, straight lining on the brakes to make sure the rear of the car did not snap loose further. So I think it was just a mistake through Denton's, whereby he carried a bit too much speed and a bit too much steering locked together, and it all added up. But of course, those small moments proving to be absolutely pivotal, and will we see more of those before the day is over? Well, as the rain continues to fall at some places and others not, well, we'll have to see soon, because, of course, we get closer and closer towards the halfway point of the race. The rain is falling enough there that you can start to see the reflection of some sunlight off of the tarmac surface. So this surface is now definitely to the point of wetness, as we do show the weather at the top centre of your screen. And as you can see, the circuit now graded as lightly wet, and we have overcast conditions where 10% chance of rain. But hold up a second, there's a chance here. We've got some change afoot inside the top 6. Yes, we have. Gwellam Hamling being passed by both Nuttall and Blankensteiner, and I suspect that Hamling has had a very similar mistake to what happened to Sharp only moments ago. Meanwhile, change of places there between the Kukas crew machines of Pavel Grilica and Arn Solano. Solano having a bit of a poor run coming out to Cascades as well. Several drivers losing out of Cascades, so it's catching out many a driver now. The run from Denton's in towards turn number 3, and with that, it does mean now that a lot of drivers might be needing to adjust their brake markers and also their braking points if they want to avoid it befalling them as well, or having a repeat offence. Instead of hopping over the curbs, then the amount of water that is accumulating at the Britain chicane, it's a lot on those apex curves. They're going to be careful about using them going forward, and I suspect there might come a time where using those curves is not the right thing to do, as this circuit stays lightly wet at the moment, but any moment that could change. From what is the run of Hilltop through the Hislop chicane, and now Nico Recorder. Well, Grilica right now looking smooth, and Solano staying with him. It's Grilica who seems to be a little bit more composed in these conditions, at least for now. William Chandler still chasing after Martin Foster in the fight for 15th place. No real change between these two at the moment, as the Cracks Racing driver has definitely had one of those days today where he'll look back at it and ask himself, why exactly am I down at the bottom end of the top 15 when it could have been the top 10? Well, the answer is small mistakes and errors have really added up, and right now with the conditions here, as he has another big moment there coming in towards Druids. The 43 driver here just struggling, the car refusing to give him what he wants, and well, losing out there versus Foster, and now Samuel Kramer's only a second behind and closing quick. So William Chandler struggling in these conditions. They're all having to learn where the new racing line is. Indeed, as the surface increasingly gets wet, well, understandably, what would be your normal racing line no longer exists as much anymore, because even on wet tyres, you do not want to hit standing water. You want to avoid the puddles, and sometimes those puddles form on the dry line, or the dry racing line, we should say, and therefore you've got to invent a whole new line. But you have to learn, you have to evolve as the race goes on. Indeed, the way the water accumulates based on realistic data here, and you will see it will puddle in certain places and not others, and finding those places where the puddles are not is where the fastest times are typically going to be. But over the rise, and down he comes in towards the next chicane. And onto the brakes here, Meski putting himself right in the middle of the road. He's now starting to see the line he needs to take here, and that's giving him the confidence. But also noticeably, Southfield and Klimovich as well, they are both watching what Meski is doing, and they are following in his wheel tracks. And that's the one thing as well about being the leader. You are unfortunately the guy who essentially has to show to the world what is the best line. Alternatively, you'll be the one who shows the one what is not the correct line in the first place. And well, Meski getting it right, but now Southfield and Klimovich trying to do the same in following him. But from there, we come back to Jamie Nuttall, as we do see a big snake into the car there for Blankensteiner. And well, the Cracks Racing driver from Denmark right now trying to push after Nuttall. He is looking as quick as Nuttall, albeit it's not as perhaps smooth, but understandably he's got the confidence in the car. He's just now got to rein it in a little bit and tame what is the expectations, and he might have a chance here of passing Nuttall for what will be some key points. But of course, Jamie Nuttall would ideally like to finish as high as he can in this one versus Kieran Sharp to try and close that gap in the championship before the season finale. So therefore, there might be a bit of team orders to play in this one, but we're not 100% certain about it. But it might be a team call that's got to be made. But further down the order, into Druids, that's a battle there. Mav Gardner up inside of Raymond van Zutphen. That's going to be for 18th place. So Gardner enjoying this good scrap and getting the place on back. Meanwhile, it's been a poor run coming out of Cascades there for Blankensteiner. Up the inside goes Gwellam Hamling. And whilst Hamling got it wrong only a few laps earlier at that same corner, now he's going to find himself gaining the upper hand versus Blankensteiner, who tries to hold round the outside. Goes high there. The water will not be pooling up on the high line. And that's a very good move there from Blankensteiner. Gets the place back. And I think he's just shown to everyone the fan that shell oils bend. The higher you go, the more grip there's going to be up there. Up to a point where you hit what is the lip of the corner. And suddenly you'll end up ejecting yourself to the grass and off into the local forest. albeit hopefully we don't see that. But as Blankensteiner heads on down now, well, he's got Hamling still looking one way then the other. But Martin Blankenstein definitely shown that he can evolve to these conditions. As meanwhile, Kieran Sharp is watching behind, and we jump on board with Kieran Sharp as he comes towards the end of the Hislop chicane. But going all the way out the hill now, and well, still trying to find a bit more time here is Sharp, TSRC. Down in seventh place here. This race definitely very different from race number one. In race number one, he definitely had all the pace in hand in the end where others were losing it. But here in the wet, well, he was saying to me in the build-up to today that he was looking forward to this and also looking forward to the change to the wet conditions. This change definitely proving to be one that is hard to surmount for him. As the British driver continues to look forward, never looking back, and well, the gap to Felix Woggy behind is almost 4 seconds. So therefore, he can afford to focus on what's in front of him and not worry about the risk of losing that 7th place. Going on to that next lap. The spray is definitely getting more and more prominent off the back of these cars, and that's a sign of how wet the track conditions are, and the fact we are gradually upgrading those wet conditions. It is moving more towards moderately wet versus lightly wet here as that rain continues to fall, albeit it's not always visible on camera, as that's a run wide. That's Hamlin going out wide all the way out to Cascades Bend, and the correct racing driver being called out of that corner twice now, and he's going to lose the place to Sharp, and Felix Woggy meanwhile 2.5 seconds behind. Well, his teammate not quite close enough to be able to capitalise on his own teammate's misfortune. And instead, Felix Woggy does have the growing pressure of Otto Keris behind, and the Flying Dutchman still keeping him very much honest there as they head into the second half of this lap. But at the front of the field, Milos Meski, last lap of 45.65 versus Southwood's 45.22. The point being here, the fact that Meski, perhaps in his lead now, being whittled into a little bit as they make their way through the SS sequence. For your number 11 driver here, can he hold on for a bit longer? He's still got 13 minutes to go, and these wet tyres right now, well, they do have a lifespan, like all tyres do, albeit if he can manage his tyres nicely, he should be comfortable, and he would force Southfield to effectively have to make the move on track, and he'd have to be quite forceful with it. So he'd require Southfield to have to really put the hammer down to close up, and then try to find a way to get on through. As we do see Meski there, bringing the car over to the inside firstly, but there's going to be some more water, making sure he cools the tyres down as much as he possibly can, and there is always an operating window on the slick tyres, whereby you want to keep them hot, but not too hot, and at the same time never too cool. It's around about 50 degrees centigrade that the tyres really do operate well. Once they start heading towards 70 to 80 degrees, they start to be at risk of overheating. Get them to 90, and you're starting to essentially burn the tread block off of the tyre, and what will eventually happen is you will turn that tyre into a second-hand slick, a very bad slick tyre at that, essentially, because it won't be fit for either purpose at that point. But as Meski comes out Cascades, gap to Southfield, dropping there a little bit more, and on that previous lap, Southfield was almost 7/10 faster in the number 98. He is going right now, and where he's going, well, he's trying to go to the top step of the podium if he can. That's Klimovic, meanwhile, just follows on behind for Kukas. They're trying to make it a double podium at least, but will it be a 1-3? Will it be a 1-2? Or will it be a 2-3? Those are the three configurations. And well, right now, the team would just like the points, but also the drivers would like the win if they can. Jamie Nuttall further behind. He's bringing Blankensteiner and Sharp with him. So, with Sharp losing those places earlier on, he seems to have got a bead now, as we do see that really prominent dry line forming through what is the Britain chicane. There's a lot of puddles that's standing in amongst the corners, but there is one natural dry line, and that's the problem you have, is now that you're getting these singular lines forming here, there are going to be certain corners where you just cannot overtake anymore for the risk of driving onto a puddle and seeing the car aquaplane away. And that's what Jamie Nutt will be hoping for here, is the fact that if his teammate or Sharp behind do put some pressure on him, he'll be able to just simply take the correct line, and therefore if they want to go for a move, they're going to find a face full of water instead. Looking further back to William Chandler. He's still chasing after Samuel Kramers, as in the battle for 18th off camera, and Zutphen is back ahead of Gardner. They continue to swap back and forth, with Gardner having an off-track quite recently, but we do see here, well, Kramers is ahead of Chandler, and meanwhile it's Martin Foster, who is now at the head of this group for 14th place, and your number 88 driver here and trying to hold on, but more so, I think it is Kramers having to hold off Chandler here, and Chandler having a much better run through the Hislop chicane. Going over that crest now. Well, is he going to be able to make a move into Druids? Does he dare to make a move into the Druids Bend? And the answer is going to be he thinks about it, but in the end, by going deep to go for the switchback run, he almost takes some grass with him. So William Chandler gets away with that just about, but the momentum he gains on exit here, well, it was all worth risking it in the end, he'll say, as he comes down onto the anchors, looking all the way round. Can he get it stopped in time? Yes. Can he get it done? Not quite. He does end up taking two wheels to the grass, and William Chandler almost makes a move around the outside of Samuel Kramers for 15th, but it's not going to work. We've still got 10 minutes to go. But with 10 minutes still left on the clock here right now, William Chandler definitely getting more and more eager as we ride on board the front bumper camera of the number 43. We can see that spray coming off the car in front, and understandably, this spray right now, well, what we're seeing on the nose bumper camera won't be anywhere near as rough as what's seen inside the cockpit for Chandler. As we see a big wobble there for both drivers. Kramer's really struggling on the corner exit there. And here they come up towards Island Bend, but Chandler backs off there 9. There is no way in at this point. It'd be too risky to go for it, and that's the point about certain corners now. If you go for an overtake, is it worth it anymore versus other corners where the overtaking opportunities are still valid? Chandler tries to go high around the outside, but in and he will be run out of road by Kramer's there. Kramer's knowing what his right is, which is when they're not fully alongside, he can take his racing line, and Chandler knows that as well. That's why he backed off. Indeed, these two fighters are going to give Martin Foster a little bit of breathing room. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, we're going on to lap number 13 shortly. Milos Metzke under huge pressure from Jack Southfield. Southfield right now looking around the outside again. Oh, a little bit of a touch there onto the brakes. And Jack Southfield rubbing bumper to bumper there. Southfield getting very eager to make a move now. That previous lap again, 3/10 faster. Southfield has got command of these conditions. And that is the problem that Metzke has here. That right now the TSRC car absolutely proving to be just that much quicker. But of course, Southfield here, as much as he's got all the pace, he's still got to find a way to make the move happen. As off camera, meanwhile, we have had William Chandler involved in an incident, and Marlon Schwab as well has got significant damage to his car. We're going to replay that when we can, but definitely a bit of drama further down the order, but we're not seeing drama here as Milos Metzke goes high and dry there, and that's going to make sure that Southfield can't go up the inside of him. Further back, Martin Blankensteiner fighting with Kieran Sharp as they come on through the left in towards the right, and onto the brakes right now. Blankensteiner holding off what is Sharp and Hamling there as they all queue up together. Drivers rolling through right now. You can see Jamie Nuttall. He's been given a bit of breathing room from his teammate. Here's Blankensteiner having to act as rear gunner. So Sharp and Hamling queuing up. Hamling is back on the attack and so close at the moment as we jump aboard with the Cracked Racing 351, where it's Cracked Racing drives surrounding the championship leader of Sharp. And right now they'll be hoping they're able to pin him down and make sure he can't make any more progress. And if Hamling can get ahead of Sharp, all the better, they'll say. Particularly for Jamie Nuttall to be the man who might be able to take Sharp the distance at Road Atlanta. But after race number 1 and how things are playing out in this second one, anything's possible here. As Hamling gets the better run out of Nick Corder. He's going to pick up the speed here going through Clay Hill. Does he go for it there? Runs to the grass, puts 2 wheels on the grass, decides not to go for it. It's only one wide coming in towards Druids again. But Hamling right now, he has really got the bit between his teeth. He thinks he can do this, and we're coming off the corner so close again. 1/10 is the delta as the spray just becomes absolutely abhorrent, and we're onto the anchors they go. Hamling in the end just queued up behind the concertina there, makes it look like they're going to make it to contact, but not quite so. And now 7 minutes to go, another 5 laps including the one they're going on to, and Hamling right now, he's got the pace, he's got the enthusiasm, but has he got the place to make the place up? Well, not quite at the moment. And just having to continue to wait as Kieran Sharp right now finding himself in his worst nightmare here, surrounded by drivers of the other team in the team's championship that TSRC are fighting with. And he's got a driver who's very keen as Hamling looks up the inside, and in the end just about avoids the contact there. But on that inside line, Sharp does not hesitate, he holds on. But meanwhile, speaking of hold on, Milos Metzke meanwhile still holding off Jack Southfield as we say hello there to the time consumer in the YouTube chat. Hope you're doing well, sir. And well, as Metzke holding his distance, the gap of course on the first 5 corners this lap going all the way down to a 10th by the time they get to Shell Oils. But Metzke so much more confident on that higher line, is able to open the gap back up by the best part of 5 tenths, and that really does dictate then the fact that Metzke cannot be caught through Hilltop all the way through to the end of the lap. However, Southfield is able to find a way to nullify that advantage that Metzke takes at Shell Oils Bend. I think we could be looking at a 2 wide at some point as Southfield takes a bit of grasp in there, and right now Southfield definitely exploring every bit of the road. And the number 98 driver here, well, earlier on today, of course, we did see Dave Barnes think that it might have been Southfield's to take today. And, well, the first race today, definitely not. But this second one, it is Southfield's right now, if he can get ahead. But Metzke, of course, making himself nice and wide and ensuring that Southfield cannot find any place other than behind the Polish driver's car. But a bit of a run deep there for Metzke. That's to pick up momentum. That's not a mistake. He knows where the wet patches are, and he's got to run wide out of the final corner to find the drier section. On to now lap number 15. drivers continue to wind their way through. No change as we take a quick look back in time for a big moment earlier on, and we had some major drama for William Chandler, only about the best part of 4 laps to go. And here it is. Hold up a second. Well, forget that for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. We've just had a big spin for Milosmeski as he comes down the hill, losing the rear of the car. And well, as Jack Southfield goes on through to take the lead, Milosmeski loses it at the end of Cascades, and an absolute disaster. And well, the Kukas crew driver there gets it back together for now, but a big slip there, and that's going to have big repercussions in this race as the damage to the car now. You can see he's not happy with the way the car's behaving. He's not happy with himself either. He's got to try and get himself back together here. But of course, immediately after that, you've got to try and get your head together, and well, it's not easy as Jack Southfield now takes the lead this race after putting that pressure on for so long. More suddenly, it's all come together. Number 98 driver and Philip Klimovich, meanwhile, well, 2.5 seconds back now. The pressure is on the Kukas crew driver, then number 2, to try and find a way to upend Jack Southfield's run to victory. But can he do so with less than 5 minutes left in the day? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, because he is a bit far back. But we'll have to wait and see what he can do. Meanwhile, Martin Blankensteiner, well, he's still caught up behind Jamie Nuttall. He is still car number 2 in this 4-car train, albeit it is a growing train here in the fact that we have Felix Smoggy almost on the back of it now. And also there, Otto Karis closing little by little. And well, both of those drivers had relatively quiet races as a big slip wide there from Gwilym Hamlin coming through what was the run of Knickerbrook Corder. But you can see everyone right now pushing on hard. And this has become a fight for 4th now. And well, the first spot off of the podium. Who's going to take home the big points? That is going to be a change that confronts them. But we were going to get a replay of what exactly happened to William Chandler only moments ago. And well, we will definitely take a look back at that, and also what happened to the race leader at that point. And in fact, we might be able to get a quick replay as of now, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully this time, it's not just more drama going to happen. So this was William Chandler making a big error, coming through Knickerbrook, took the grass on entry into the corner. It went entirely on around, and as the car rolled backwards on him on the exit there, we'll let the car roll off the road. But then we had this big moment, only moments later, and this was a change for lead, and this was Milosmeski losing it down the hill. And as he came down through Denton into a cascade, took all the speed, went on the brakes, and the rear of the car just slid loose entirely, bounced on the gravel, and into the tyre barrier there, and in the end, just braking a little bit later than perhaps he normally would, and that was the difference there for the number 11 driver. But as they all come through, we do sound there to McFly 8870, and that being Martin Foster there having a bit of difficulty, and we'll challenging day with the conditions there and the fixed setup on the car. And also we do say hello there to Piot 1988. But Jack Southfield, well, since we've left him, that gap that he had has been absolutely decimated. Philip Klimovich is right on the back of him now, the number 30 driver. Well, suddenly here, he's got the memo, he's got the story, and he's going to go on the attack up the hill here. It's this lap plus another, and then we will see the finish line. I believe we may squeeze in another 2. We are close to doing it, given the lap times at the moment. In the 1 minute 45s and 46s, we could be tenuously close here to seeing what would be an 18th lap added. And right now for Jack Southfield, he's going to be praying that the next lap is the final one. We're coming down towards the lodge. Well, right now Klimovich so close here, and with all the confidence brewing, I mean, it's going to be a question of when, not if he can go for the move here, as we are going to see 2 more laps. The clock strikes 1 minute 50 left to go. No white flag waving there from what I can see out my commentator booth window. So therefore, we believe this is the penultimate lap. But as they come through the corner, Klimovich getting so close, that taps the rear of Southwood's car. Well, that's confidence right now for the Kukas crew driver, but he's got to find a way to get that close without making contact. And if he can do so, he'll be able to get 2 wide as they come down the hill, but constantly fighting with the car under braking. And Klimovich right now, they're both snaking around here and runs a bit wide. It costs him the time. And in the end, Klimovich trying to get the power down, but just a bit too eager with the throttle pedal. But he wants that first win of the season. They both do. And well, coming all the way around through turn number 4 in towards 5. Well, Southfield right now, all he may need to do here is not make a mistake. And perhaps Klimovich will make a mistake of his own. But we will see what's to be for them. As meanwhile in the battle for 4th through to 7th, it's still your 4 of Nuttall, Blankensteiner, Sharp and Hamlin. The quartet are still as they were when we left them. Kieran Sharp having to go defensive there. Hamlin trying to go all the way high around the outside, and Sharp just defending off centre to the inside of the road, making it too wide for what is Hamlin to try and make a move there without having to touch the grass. So Sharp 9 out to play the game here, but it does look as though whatever momentum he has to try and chase after Blankensteiner, he's giving that up to make sure he holds on to that 6th place. Well, I'll be Sharp right now looking backwards rather than forwards here, but I think he's focusing more on gaining the points in the championship rather than trying to pick up the big prizes. But from there, back back to your lead as we come, and here they still are. It is still Klimovic trying to find a way past Southfield. Southfield right now hold on by 3 tenths, if that, as they make their way out of Druid's Bend. 20 seconds left on the clock. There will be one more lap after this one as we understand it, and as they come onto the brakes here in towards what will be Lodge, well, it's no way through for Klimovic as they'll come over the Deer Leap here, and with 8 seconds left on the clock, we will go the distance. One more lap, ladies and gentlemen. The white flag waves, and Southfield right now has to hold on just one more time. But Klimovic, he's got so much speed in some of these corners, but the problem is he's so close, and he's got to find the right time to get even closer than that. 1/10 as they come in towards Denton's here. Southfield puts the car right in the middle of the road before covering off the inside. Klimovic in the end just literally hugs his rear bumper and says to him, if you're going to do that, I'll stay right with you. He doesn't need any mistakes at this point, and a perfect run like that. It's a 10th now as they head up towards Island Bend, but Klimovic is going to have to take a risk here as Southfield puts himself right to the centre of the road. Klimovic can't find a way through, but Southfield will be offline there. He'll understeer a little bit wide. Klimovic now goes to the outside. Can he get all the way high and around the outside through Sherrills Bend? He's going to go for it. Southfield tries to cover him off, and Indian has to give some space, but Klimovic runs out of road, and in the as they head in towards the Britain chicane now. Klimovic looking one way, then the other. Southfield still holding dead centre. Onto the brakes they come, and this time it's still Klimovic who will be there, but can he get the run out the chicane? No, he can't. Southfield just blocks him off in time. Down over the hilltop here now. Southfield's going to cover the inside if he wants to hold on. You can see how with the puddles there, nobody wants to be on the outside, not even the aggressor, and Southfield now can just simply take his time through here. He's got to build himself up and get a good corner exit and Knickerbrook corner. Get it right, and he'll be safe. Get it wrong, and he'll be under a lot of pressure in towards Druid's Bend. And takes quite a bit of exit curb there, but in the end, it's just enough as he comes over the crest through Clay Hill. But Klimovic look into the inside there, in towards Water Tower Bed. It's going to be too wide, but he backs off. Southfield snaking on the puddle there, and as they come through Druids, they both go deep, but Klimovic taps him on the rear bumper. He can't get on the inside of him. It's one more quarter to go. The clock strikes 0. Who's going to be the winner out of this one? It's going to be all at Lodge Bend where it's decided. And in the end, Southfield just literally puts the car on the inside. All he's got to do is take it easy out of this bend. Klimovic on his rear bumper every step of the way, but I don't think Klimovic is going to be able to do it because Jack Southfield will hold on to take the victory today. Head of Philip Klimovic, who comes on home in second place, just behind his best race of the season. And then it'll be Milos Meski, who in the end brings it home third, does take his first podium here today at Oulton Park in the second race. And it'll be 6 seconds back to Jamie Nutter, who does lead the quartet of himself, Blankenstein, Sharpman, Hamlingham through to 7th place, with Felix Smoggy making a quintet at the end, taking home 8th place. And it'll be Otto Karras, who wasn't on the pace of the group. He will take home 9th ahead of Antolono, who will bring home the final spot inside the top 10, the Swede. And then from the Kukas crew driver, it will be to his teammate there, Pavel Grilica, who after the heroics at the start of the race and also in race number 1, this time 11th place was the best he could do. Joe Pinder's about 22 seconds behind. And as these drivers make their way in towards the final couple of quarters, well, they've definitely been struggling out there, but give them all a round of applause, ladies and gents, because it's been an incredibly entertaining race. And Joe Pinder making his way across that timeline now, and as he does so, Samuel Kramer's just behind him there by 1.5 seconds, and in the privateer getting the upper hand on the DLR FP1 driver. And then it'll be Mav Gardner here, who's under pressure still from Raymond Van Zutphen. These two have been fighting all race for what was originally 18th place, and now they've been promoted up into 14th with the retirements of a few cars. And what we can see, Mav Garner will hold on the end versus the Flying Dutchman, so the TSRC drive will get the upper hand, but what a battle between them. And then Gareth Ronda will be coming on home in 16th place. In the end, he will be your last lead lap finisher. We have had a finish of the race for what is none other than Marlon Schwab recently. He was a lap down. Also, we are going to see here Janos Wenzel very shortly make his way out the final quarter to see his checker flag. He'll be 18th in this one. And we have unfortunately lost Martin Foster and William Chandler from the race, but our last finisher will be Gareth Ronda, ladies and gentlemen, as he calls things on down here, heading in towards the last couple of bends. And we're just taking it nice and easy here. 9, there's no more places to be gained. There's none he can lose. So therefore, he may as well just tiptoe his way and see the finish line. As he does so there, the checker flag awaits him. And it'll pick up our 2:30 drive, who'll be the last finisher of this race on the lead lap. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race from start to finish. It was full of drama. It was full of excitement. That's what the wet weather and Oulton Park do. It is the perfect combination. And with Porsche Cup cars as well, you couldn't ask for better. And in the end, Jack Southfield able to make it a second win of the season. And then it was a second and third for the none other than the Kukas crew of Klimovic and Meski. Hoping it could have been a 1-2, but it wasn't to be. But still, to be very happy with the results they have taken with certainty. But with that, let's take a look at those race results subject to any Stewards inquiries. And here they are. And as we can see, after an epic conclusion to this race. Jack Southwood, your winner in the end for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, and we're taking that win by 3.5 tenths ahead of Filip Klimovic, the Kukas crew driver there, right behind him at the end, but not enough to find a way through. And as Ten Carlin says, their Kukas crew on fire today, and definitely when the fire went out for Milos Meski, who finished in third, it was Klimovic who was able to pick up the pieces there and keep the torch burning strong, and that's why they've made it a double podium. Jamie Nuttall taking fourth there for Cracked Racing, just ahead of his teammate Martin Blankensteiner, in the end struggling in the conditions, but it seemed as though the entirety of the quintet of himself, Blankensteiner, Sharp, Hamling and Smoggy all were equal, but nobody could find a way through, with the road becoming so narrow with the puddles on the outside lines. And then behind your 8th place finisher, it was Otto Karis there for the Flying Dutchman, who in the end was able to make sure that Kukas cruiser on Solano wasn't able to get close enough to spoil his 9th place, and Solano having to settle for 10th. Pavel Gridica took 11th place there, the Kukas crew driver who after his heroics in race number 1 definitely didn't quite have the pace in the wet today, but he was ahead of none other than Joe Pinder, the privateer. And then we did see Samuel Kramers in 13th place for DLR FP1 ahead of Mav Gardner. It was 14th there for the TSRC Esports driver ahead of Raymond van Zutphen for the Flying Dutchman. And then we did have Gareth Ronda in 16th place there for Cracked Racing, and he was your last lead lap finisher. We had a lap down there for Mitch Williston as well as Janos Wenzel, and it was 4 laps down classified for Marlon Schwab, but he did see the finish and will pick up the points. And it was also 6 laps down there for Martin Foster there, albeit a retirement, but I do believe he'll be classified and bring him some points for RPMS Simsport. And unfortunately we did lose in the early stage of the race, none other than William Chandler there, and well, I do suspect he will be bringing home the points as well, given he was 6 laps down as classified at the finish. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, what a race it was, and indeed it has been an incredible sprint race round. And as all of our race action does come to a stop for today, of course we've got one more round to go. This has teed us up very nicely for our season finale at Road Atlanta in a week's time. Well, our broadcast will not be going silent for too long, because in approximately 5 minutes time we'll be back for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, who are we going to hear from and what they got to say about the racing here today in the mixed conditions at Oulton Park. Well, we have to wait and find out, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back as soon as we possibly can. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews with our drivers. And we're going to kick off with a man who definitely kept us entertained over the racing today, coming from 11th in qualifying to 6th in race number 1, and then starting on pole for race number 2. He couldn't quite take the win, but he almost managed to right at the end, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than what is Filip Klimovic. Good afternoon to you, Filip, and well, what a day of racing from yourself. I mean, the way it started off in qualifying compared to the final race, two different worlds apart, but you look like you enjoyed yourself out there.
Hello everyone. The first race was so crazy. Bit nervous and I make a few mistakes. But in the final result, the first race is so nice. I'm happy from the result. And the second race was nervous again. The battle from P1 and some mistakes that make the race crazy. I think it's all, I think, because I'm not good in English.
Oh, no worries at all. Why were you nervous?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I can't. Wait. I can't say why I'm nervous and why the race was so nervous, but everyone watched the stream and knows why the race was so nervous, I think.
Yes, I see. So, perhaps not talking about nervousness then. Qualifying, 11th place, were you happy with your lap?
Oh no, my qualifying was bad, but I don't know why I can do better laps on qualify. I'm bad in qualify always. I can't qualify for the race, but the P11 was bad. Was bad, I think.
I see. Well, bad qualifying, but race 1, good race, and at the end, it meant you would start first for race 2. Well, another way to ask it is, did you enjoy the battles of race 1?
Yes. Okay, I have microphone problem. Yes, the battles was so crazy. I'm very happy. I think the battle was so clean and good. And I don't know. I don't know what to say more.
I think that's perfect, to be fair. And great battles in race 1. Race 2, even better battles, particularly with Jack Southfield at the end of the race.
Yeah, that's right. The second race battle was too much better, and I am and clean, and I'm happy with this result for the race, for both race. I'm happy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we're glad that you're happy. And of course, one more round next week, Road Atlanta. Is it a circuit you like?
Yes, I'm very like Road Atlanta, and I expect a good result for me. And we will see what happens. Yes, I like Road Atlanta, and I think the race in Atlanta was so nice.
Oh, Absolutely fair play. We look forward to seeing you at Road Atlanta. And Philip, just before we say goodbye, is there anyone you would like to give a thank you or a mention on the broadcast?
Yes, for everyone racers in the race, for my team Kukash crew, and everyone teammates, everyone drivers, and for everyone viewers on stream.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Philip, we'll leave it there. It's been absolutely brilliant hearing from you today. Congratulations on your results, particularly second in race number 2. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next week.
Thank you so much. See you soon on Road Atlanta.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Kukas's Cruise, Philip Klimovic, and well, hearing from him today, whilst his English may not be perfect, definitely getting across what he wanted to say there, and we'll absolutely love him for it. First and foremost, saying the fact that qualifying was not great. He was really not happy with his qualifying performance, but he was able to turn it around in the races, and goodness me, was he able to turn it around well. We got to see him put on some brilliant battling in both race 1 and race number 2. Race number, of course, making all that progress to move from 11th to 6th place, and in the end having an opportunity to take pole position for the second and final race of the day. And speaking of which, going on the attack there, and we got to see him really give it his all, but unfortunately after losing lead early on, he was not quite able to take it back, even in the closing stages, and in the end things went the way instead to none other than Jack Southard. But he enjoyed the battle, and he enjoyed the clean racing throughout, and he's looking forward to Road Atlanta in our season finale in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going to our second interview very shortly. Bear with us about 30 seconds, and we'll be back for another interview. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it's over to our second interview of the day, and we're going to continue the theme of the Kukas crew, but we're going to come to none other than Milos Meski, as he does join me now in the interview room. Good afternoon to you, Milos, and well, what a day for yourself. 4th and 3rd after pole position. You must be happy with the racing today.
Yeah, actually, I'm not that happy. I expected much better, but yeah, it is what it is.
Oh, understandably, perhaps not as happy as you would like to be, but let's talk about one of the happier parts of the day then. Qualifying, that pole position. You looked very quick in practice, and then in the qualifying, you were constantly at the very top. Was it the perfect lap?
No, I did a mistake which cost me like 2/10 or something like that. But that was the pole. I'm actually happy about that. But the race gone completely wrong way, and yeah.
Oh, indeed. It was unfortunate in race 1 where it went the wrong way, like you say. What went wrong, do you feel, in race 1?
Yeah, actually, the first like 3 or 5 laps were pretty good. I had like 2 or 3 seconds gap behind, but I don't know. At the end, actually, I made so many mistakes. My front tires were completely gone. Like the car didn't even turn. I had struggled with every corner. So yeah, that finally made P4.
Oh, I see. Tyre life going against you in the end, but still, that was race number 1. And with the 4th place finish in that one, it meant you would start in 3rd for race 2. We saw you battling for the win in race 2, and you did take the lead, but then it all went wrong coming down the hill. What happened?
Yeah, the conditions were Actually hard. Yeah, the track was very tricky, and it was very easy to make any mistake. So it happens to me in one corner. Uh, that was very unfortunately, and yeah, I got damage, and the race was over at this moment.
I see. Unfortunate there that you did pick up the damage and it was really over for yourself and having a chance of chasing down any more positions. But still, you did make it onto the podium, even if it wasn't the day you were looking for. So a decent debut. In terms of our upcoming round, of course, Road Atlanta, our season finale, what can we expect from you there?
I don't really know. I didn't even buy a Road Atlanta yet, but yeah, we'll see. I know the track, but I never drove on that.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. Well, we won't know what you're going to be like until we see you there, so you'll keep us guessing every step of the way. And just as we do get ready to let you go, two final questions. Firstly, with regards to the Porsche Cup car, what do you feel is the ultimate challenge in driving this car?
Yeah, the challenge is the suspension, obviously, because it's very hard, it's very bumpy, and it's quite hard to control when you on the bump.
I see. Well, definitely one thing to keep out for there with that suspension. Indeed, I do know a few drivers have talked about it over the season as being quite bouncy, like you say. And then lastly, we always do need to ask this, of course, is would you like to give a shout out or a thank you to anybody on the broadcast today?
Yeah, of course, my friends from Kuka's crew, everyone who support us and just watching the race. I appreciate that, and thank you all of them.
Well, they definitely appreciate the shout out, Milos, because you do have plenty tuning in right now, including, I do believe, they're none other than Ketty870, who says that you're the greatest of all time. Well, you've been absolutely great today, no doubt about it. Shame it didn't work out in the races, unlike qualifying, but we'll see you at Road Atlanta, and hopefully there we'll get to see you on the podium, if not take victory in our finale.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So hearing there from none other than Milos Meski, ladies and gentlemen, from the Kukas crew. We do apologise there for the microphone being in and out a little bit. We did try to boost the levels for you, so that way you could hear from our brilliant number 11 driver today. But interested to hear from himself that on his debut, and understandable, not happy with the way the day went and the fact that qualifying had a bit of time to out there on the lap, but happy to be on pole, but it went wrong in race number one, just pushed the tyres too hard, and in the end, towards the end of the race, lost the time and lost the places to his rivals. However, he had a second chance at victory in race number two, but what went wrong there? We're just coming down that hill, got it wrong under braking, and in the end, well, in the challenging conditions, the conditions catching so many drivers out, to be fair, he was not alone, but it shows you can catch out even some of the very best at Oulton Park. Well, going into the wall, and after the damage, well, that was his race over in terms of being able to make any more progress, and he did have to settle in the end for third place. But still, it was a podium. He'll be happy with that, no doubt. And now understand he looks ahead to Road Atlanta, not knowing exactly what to expect there, because he's still got to learn the circuit, and he's going to keep us guessing as to what to expect. But one thing we can expect is that if he puts the practice in and he's able to find the pace, he could be definitely looking to chase down a win or two in the race. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, well, that concludes our interviews, and we'll call it there for speaking to our drivers today. But it's been great to hear from our drivers from the Kukas crew, because that's who we've spoken to. We firstly spoke to Filip Klimovic in the number 30 car there, and having gone from 11th to 6th to 2nd today, he'll feel as though the progress definitely coming his way. Meanwhile, it was a bit of a rough debut there for Milos Meski, as whilst he was able to take pole position by quite a margin in the end of 6.5 hundredths. Unfortunately for him, a 4th and 3rd was the best he could achieve when it all looked as though it could have been heading the way for a double victory. Thank you to both of them for joining me in the interview room, and we look forward to plenty more talks to our drivers in our season finale in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Sim Racing Collective in terms of who we are and what series we run and everything else in between, well, of course, the number one place you can definitely go to is to our official website, and that's at www.tsrc.club, our website on screen now, the number one place for all information, all things the Sim Racing Collective. Right in the dead centre, of course, you've got a link to go straight to our Discord, the beating heart of the community, and that way you can interact with all the staff, all the drivers, and everything everyone in between. On the left-hand side, you've got all of our socials, ranging from our SimGrid page through to our X or Twitter profile, our Instagram, our YouTube, our Twitch, and also our Discord once again. And at the bottom, you've got our partners and affiliates, should you wish to know more about them. And at the top right, of course, you've got our extra web pages, including the news page for all the latest news and announcements at TSRC, and also the rules and regulations if you want to be on the grid with us and going racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we do also suggest, if you're not perhaps wanting to go to our website, if you're perhaps just sat there asking, what's the number one place I should go to, beyond perhaps the Discord, if I want to stay up to date with the things all TSRC related, we definitely recommend you give us a follow on Twitter. That's at twitter.com/TSRC_official, as there you'll be able to stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements from our ongoing and upcoming series, and also the trials and tribulations of the official Sim Racing Collective esports teams. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our partners and affiliates, who do include Tam Livery, SimGrid, Coach Dave Academy, and a Brucey Simulation of Motorsport. And we would like to give a big shout out and a mention to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at the Sim Racing Collective as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and onwards. But ladies and gentlemen, onwards the show must go, and next time we make our way back to the US of A. However, it's the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for round number 5 of 5, and on Sunday the 8th of March 2026, we'll be bringing the curtain down and crowning our champions in the Drivers and Teams Championship. But how exactly do things stand after what has been now 4 rounds of racing? Well, provisionally, the way the standings sit is in the fact that it is still Kieran Sharp who leads the way at the very top, although Jamie Nuttall has been able to gain some ground back on him after what has been a better set of performances today. Meanwhile, in the Teams Championship, well, it was the Sim Racing Collective esports come to be ahead of Cracked Racing by a margin which will feel comfortable. It's only 32 points, and their margin has been slightly improved once again, and therefore it does seem as though right now everything is looking all TSRC. But will anybody be able to turn the tables upside down and potentially put a late twist in the chapters of the Sim Racing Collective Porsche Cup? We'll come tune in next week to see how it all concludes, but until then, we have been the Sim Racing Collective community. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.